In the last video, we took a look at the Five Nights at Freddy's sister location custom night and recreated a night of gameplay using command blocks. All of the animatronic mechanics and challenge modes were added in and able to be fully customized, letting us attempt and beat the highest difficulty levels. So continuing on with this series, it is now time to finish the original Five Nights games by recreating the gameplay from Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator all in vanilla Minecraft. FNAF 6 has the most amount of gameplay from any other FNAF game so far, so let's take a look at what we need to know before we get started. Pizzeria Simulator's gameplay is split into 3 different sections where gameplay changes drastically between each one. Every day starts with a Tycoon minigame where players are able to buy different attractions and animatronics to create and customize their own pizzerias. Each item is sorted into 4 shopping catalogs where more expensive items can improve the environment and statistics of the building. After setting up the location for the day, the game switches over to an office survival sequence where supplies and repairs must be ordered from a computer terminal in a separate room. While working, however, multiple animatronics are active in the surrounding vent system and are attracted to the loud sounds that come from the office space. Finally, after finishing all of the tasks, the player enters a dark room where they can then choose to salvage an animatronic for bonus revenue or throw it back outside for more safe gameplay. If the salvage option is selected, the animatronic will slowly move to attack the player as they attempt to fill out a maintenance checklist to complete the shift. So now that we know what we're ready to work on, let's head over to Minecraft and get started working on this project. Before we get started on any of the gameplay, the first thing we need to do is build all the attractions and locations that we're able to buy throughout the game by using this shopping build in front of us. Now, ignoring these buttons on the wall for the time being, I first want to focus on this purple outline here, as it's where all of the shopping items will be set as we cycle through all the different catalogs. Here are all 60 of the different props and animatronics that we're going to be able to buy throughout the game, and I've sorted each one into 4 separate rows to indicate which one belongs to each different catalog. So we can see on each different row we have a bunch of different attractions and animatronics, ranging from the Trash in a Gang on the very first row all the way up to Music Man on the bottom row here, where you can see all the armor stands get a bit more complex as they go along, as I start using a bit more armor stands to add a bit more immersion to the animatronics, such as Orville here, who has some armor stands for his ears and nose, and then going back to Music Man here, who has 6 different armor stands just for his legs, and then a separate one for his torso up here. So what we're going to be doing is getting all of these builds and attractions to teleport or be cloned up to the outlines in the shop, so that way we can look at them all in one place. Getting this to work doesn't involve that many command blocks. Now it looks like there is a lot going on here, but each one of these rows represents a different item that we're able to select in the shop. Now this involves 2 different clone commands. This first one here is going to clear the area of any blocks that are currently in the shop, and then the second one here is going to be the command block that actually clones the build into the shop for us to look at. Now there is a third command block involved, but this is the one that detects which item is currently selected, and this is done by using an execute command. So you can see here, if the execute command detects a score of shop 1, it means it's going to power this strip of command blocks, and then we'll activate the next command block every time the scoreboard is increased by 1. To get a better visual of this, if I go ahead and put this command in chat, you can now see at the side of the screen that we currently have a score of 1, and this command block chain is still active. Now this command block here is going to up our score by 1, so now if I go ahead and click this button here, our score has been set to 2, and now this command chain has been unpowered, but the next one along has been powered. So now every time we hit this button here, it's going to activate the next command block in the next row, cycling through the next item in the shopping catalog. So by connecting that command block to the shopping setup, every time we press this button over to the right, it's going to increase our score by 1, letting the next item be cloned over to the shop, so that way we can take a look at whatever we'd like to buy. Now we are also able to go back a previous item by pressing the button over to the left, which does the opposite of what we just took a look at, where it's going to decrease our score by 1 instead of increasing it, letting us go back to the previous items that we've had selected. Now all we need to do is the exact same thing for every single other block built attraction. Now the exception to this is all of the animatronics, as this could be a bit more complicated. Now some of them are just single armor stands, meaning we can just simply teleport them into the build, but as we took a look at earlier, some of the more complex animatronics involve multiple armor stands, so it could be a bit more complicated to get each one of the armor stands to teleport in the right place in a different area. After getting it to work, however, this is what the completed system looks like. It's made up of just about 250 command blocks, however it now lets us go through each one of the 4 different catalogs and take a look at all of the attractions within them. So if we go back to the shopping menu and go ahead and click on these 4 buttons here, it's going to take us to the next shopping catalog, cycling through each one of the different items. Then of course we are able to click these buttons here, which is then going to take us to the next item on the menu. Now I've also gone as far as to add in all of the animatronics, so eventually we should start to see them, like there's Orville there, and eventually we'll start to see some of the more complex ones, like there's Security Puppet, there's Lefty, next should be Music Man there with all of his armor stands, then we've got El Chip, and then Funtime Chica. So all of the animatronics are here, and then if we want to go back to a different menu, all we need to do is click the button again, and it will reset our scoreboard, letting us go through each one of the different items again. So now that we're able to take a look at all of the items and place them down in the shopping menu, the next thing we need to do is actually add in the name and what the statistics of the attraction do, so that way we're actually able to know what each one of these is going to do in the pizzeria. We're once again going to be using the scoreboard command to get this set up. So as you can see at the side of the screen, we have another scoreboard in place with a whole bunch of different labels labeling the different statistics of the current attraction that is selected. So you can see we have the balloon barrel selected, and all of its labels are atmosphere, bonus revenue, entertainment, liability, price, and safety. Now each one of those is set up by using these repeating command blocks here. So you can see if we go ahead and check out this command block, we currently have the scoreboard for players, operation, and atmosphere, and we want the atmosphere to be under the balloon barrel, so that way we can have the atmosphere setting underneath the balloon barrel category. Then we want the atmosphere to be able to be linked to the atmosphere of the player, letting us go to this command block here, which way we can then use a scoreboard command to set the player's atmosphere to a certain level, which will then let us change the different labels of the attraction. So if we go ahead and click this button here, you can now see that all of the labels have changed, and the price is now set to 30, the bonus revenue is at 1, the entertainment is at 1, and everything else is at 0. Now if we take a look at this command over here, we have another attraction set up where if we click this button, we've now selected the discount ball pit, where the price is once again 30, the entertainment is 3, and the liability is at 1, and the rest of them are at 0. And this once again uses the same command, so you can see we have the atmosphere, the safety, and the entertainment, and so on and so forth for each one of the different labels. Now this is the exact same thing what we're going to have to do for every single one of these attractions here, meaning we're going to have to do this 60 times just to get the different labels in place. With all 60 now built in, we've added in quite a few more command blocks to this entire build. Now speaking of adding in more command blocks, I've also gone ahead and added in the entire purchase system to let us buy each item for our pizzeria. Now each one of these is made up of 2 AND gates that require certain actions to happen, so that way we can buy each item. So I'll use this one for an example here, as each one of them is the exact same. So it starts with this single AND gate here where there are 2 command blocks. This first one detects when we hit the purchase button in the shop, and this second one here detects the item that we have selected, so that way we don't end up buying all 60 items at once. Then when both of these have an output, it will power this redstone line here, leading into a second AND gate where we have another command block here. This time the command block detects how much cash is needed to buy the item, as obviously we don't want to be able to buy an item if we don't have enough cash for it. So for this, I've gone ahead and added in another label for the scoreboard, where you can now see at the side of the screen we now have the cash label to show off how much money we have. Then when that has an output and this has also been powered, it will then power this command block here, which will give us a sheet of paper with the item name of the item that we've just purchased, so that way we can go ahead and add it into our pizzeria. So one more time, let's go ahead and cycle through each one of these items, but this time you can start to see that all the labels at the side of the screen are changing to fit with each attraction statistics. Now let's say we want to buy the lemonade clown, for example. You can see it costs $390, so if we hit the purchase button, it's not going to do anything since we don't have the right amount of cash on us. However, if I give us $500 and press the purchase button again, you can see that it gives us that sheet of paper labeled lemonade clown, as well as subtract $390 from our bank account. Now if I try to buy something at a higher price and hit the purchase button, it's not going to do anything since we don't have the right amount of cash on us. So now that we're able to buy each item, let's now move on to the next part of the game, where we can now use these attractions to customize our pizzerias. Here are the 3 different pizzeria floor plans that we're going to be using throughout the gameplay, and you can see that in each one there are some outlines which represent where different props are going to be placed. So for example, these magenta colored ones represent where the automatic props get set, such as the stages and medical stations, while the purple ones represent where the actual attractions will be. Now each one of these purple outlines is a 7x7 square box, however this isn't always the case depending on the size of the pizzeria. So for example, if we take a look at the stage 1 pizzeria, each one of these outlines is only 5x5, and it won't be able to fit some of the bigger attractions inside of them. Now you'll also notice the stone buttons on the side of each one of these purple outlines as well, and those are the buttons we're going to press to select where we want a certain prop to be placed. So the first thing we need to work on for our pizzerias is the inventory system, so that way we're able to select what attraction we want to put in each certain outline. Now since there are 18 different attractions and animatronics we can buy, we obviously don't want to fill up our inventory with all of those sheets of paper that we get when we buy an item in the shop. So we're going to be using chests in minecarts to extend our inventory, which will then store all of the items that we buy instead of them being taken up in our inventory. Now currently in my hotbar you can see 2 different items, one labeled attractions and one labeled animatronics. Now every time we hold one of these items, the appropriate minecart is going to get teleported up to us, and then we'll be able to open it and select whichever item we would like. So let's say I hold the attractions item, that minecart gets teleported up to us, and we can now right click on it and select whichever item we'd like to place down in our pizzeria. And the same thing works for the animatronics, so when we let go, that minecart gets teleported back, and say we want to select an animatronic, that minecart gets teleported up to us again, and we now have the selection of all of the animatronics that we currently have purchased. So now when we want to put an item in a certain slot, all we will need to do is press one of the buttons in the pizzeria where we want it to be, and then we need to throw the item that we want to place down. So let's say the deluxe ball pit, for example. We would throw this item out of the minecart, press that button in the pizzeria, and it will then set the attraction at that spot. This is the start to a system that's about to get much bigger, and it'll be a lot more obvious as we go along, but it starts with these two repeating command blocks here, which detects when a stone button at a certain outline has been pressed, and is then going to set redstone blocks behind each one of these redstone lines here, depending to which outline they are connected to. So say we want to have an attraction at the bottom left corner, it's going to set redstone blocks behind the redstone lines that are connected to that same outline. So when that happens, it's going to power the first part of an AND gate, where it requires a second action to happen for the attraction to be set by using all of these command blocks here. So the second action needed is in this command block here, which detects when the item has been thrown in the chest minecart, which is then going to set the attraction that we have selected in the outline that we have chosen. For this first example, let's say we want the balloon barrel to be in this spot right here. So we're going to go ahead and click this button here, then open up the inventory menu and throw the balloon barrel item. So now if we return to the pizzeria, you can now see that the balloon barrel has now been put in place of the outline, as well as a small little fireworks display and a text in chat to go along with it. Now there's also a new button on the floor here which wasn't here before, and this is the button we need to press in case we want to replace the attraction with something else. So over here we have a second example with the discount ball pit, where say if we want to replace it with something else, all we need to do is press this button and the attraction will get removed and the outline will be put back, along with the button that lets us select which new attraction we want to put in its place. The removal setup itself isn't that complicated, as it once again involves a command block that detects when a button has been pressed, which is then going to power these two command blocks. This first one here is going to set the area to air, so that way it removes any blocks in the current area, and is then going to clone the outline back into the pizzeria again, letting us replace the attraction with another if we'd like. Now to add a sense of scale of how many command blocks we're about to add in, this is only the system for the first two attractions for the first two outlines on one side of the smallest pizzeria. There are also 18 other attractions that we need to add in, plus another set of outlines on the opposite side of the building, meaning this system is going to be used quite a few more times just so that we're able to put any attraction in any outline around each sides of the pizzeria. Now speaking of pizzerias, there are also two others that we need to add this system to, where the second floor plan has 6 outlines and the other one has 8, meaning even more command blocks will need to be added in the more outlines the pizzeria has. With the setup fully completed, however, these are the 3000 command blocks that make up the system that let us put any attraction in any outline in each 3 of the different pizzerias. Now I have made a few design changes since I started, such as the book you can see in my inventory, but this just simply replaces the chest item that summons the minecart to us to let us take a look at all the inventory items that we currently have purchased. Now keep in mind that all of these command blocks are just for the different attractions that we can put in the outlines, as we still need to add in all the automatic prop placements, such as the security doors, medical stations, and the different stages. Now this shouldn't be as difficult since there's not as much customization to do with these attractions, however there still needs to be some limitations in place, such as the size of the stage that can go in each pizzeria, as well as which animatronic can go on top of each one. Since the limitations are based in the shopping menu, I had to return to the purchase system to add in quite a few more command blocks to get this to work. Now all of these added commands are just what place down each item in the shop, however there's a few command blocks at the very back of them which actually set up the limitations itself. So here you can see that there's a redstone block set next to a sign labeled Pizzeria 1, and that's because every time we upgrade our pizzeria floor plan, another redstone block is going to get set behind each one of these comparators here and then lift each one of the restrictions that the pizzeria has. So for example, we're not able to put any of these attractions in the stage 1 pizzeria, so when we eventually upgrade to stage 2, a redstone block will be set here and lift all the restrictions, letting us put down the attractions in our new pizzeria. What those command blocks are actually doing is removing all of these solid blocks from in between these two command blocks here, stopping the repeating command blocks from activating the output ones. Now what this command block is doing is cloning this unavailable sign up to the shop front every time we have a currently unavailable item selected. Now the way we get rid of this restriction is by buying a pre-required item, so for this example these are the command blocks for the mediocre melodies, meaning we need a show stage to be able to buy each one. So once we buy a stage, this block will be removed here, stopping the output from this command block from powering this one. As this happens, a redstone dust block is going to get set down below in another system, completing the purchase system to let us buy each animatronic. Each of these pink concrete blocks represents where redstone dust needs to be added for us to complete the system to buy each mediocre melody. Now all around us you can see even more colored concrete on the floor where redstone dust is missing, and each one of these items represents another item which needs something else to be bought for us to buy the new item. That entire system works in the exact same way for the different types of show stages that can put certain animatronic types on top of each one. So for example, we can't put the Rockstar animatronics on top of the Type 1 stage, meaning we would need to upgrade our stage to get different types of animatronics. So once again, every time we buy a stage, a redstone block will be set behind this comparator here, powering all these command blocks and lifting the restrictions. And every time we upgrade our stage, another redstone block will be set, lifting the restrictions of different animatronics and letting us buy different ones. Now there's also a restriction in place for the jar of pickles, which requires 3 certain animatronics before we can unlock the pickles. So for this, there's 3 set block commands over at the purchase system, which is going to set a block in between each one of these repeaters whenever we buy El Chip, Music Man, and Funtime Chica. This will then power this redstone line here to these 2 command blocks here, which is then going to complete the system to let us buy the jar of pickles. The final restrictions needed are for the 4 shopping catalogs that we unlock as we spend more money in the shop. So for this, I've added in a secondary currency labeled shop points, which is going to be spent at the same rate that we spend money in the shop. So whenever we buy an item, we're going to lose that amount of cash that the item cost, but we're also going to use the same amount of shop points. But since we're not going to be able to regain any shop points, this is the way we're going to be able to keep track of how much money we've spent in total. So whenever we spent a certain amount, these 3 command blocks are going to activate these command blocks here, which is then going to set a new button at the shopping menu, unlocking a new catalog every time we spend a certain amount of money, letting us buy different items. With those functions now added in, I next want to move on to some more player mechanics. So in my inventory, you can now see that there is a 3rd book there, which is once again going to summon a minecart to us if we hold it and give us a new pop-up menu. This first item here is going to let us go to the shop if we throw it. This next item over here is for the sponsorship offers and how much we're going to gain if we accept it. This 3rd item here is for the upgrade floor plan and how much it's going to cost to upgrade our pizzeria. And this last item here is for the finish tab, where if we throw it, we're going to get taken to the office section once we're done with our pizzeria for the day. Just like with everything else so far, the way we're going to be able to access all those features is by throwing an item in the minecart. So for example, the first item in it is the go to shop item. So when we go ahead and throw this, it's going to teleport us to the shopping menu where we can now buy all the attractions. Now if we want to go back to the pizzeria, all we do is hit this button here labeled back to pizzeria, which is then going to teleport us back to the current pizzeria that we have selected. Since we're able to upgrade our pizzeria over time, however, we need a system that makes sure that we get taken back to the right one. So for this, we have 3 AND gate setups which link up to some teleport command blocks, teleporting the player back to the correct pizzeria. This first command block here is going to check the player's pizzeria plan scoreboard, and the second command block here makes sure that the player has actually pressed the button, letting us return back to the pizzeria. So whenever we upgrade our floor plan, our pizzeria scoreboard is going to go up by 1, making sure that only one of these command block systems is active at one time, letting the player get teleported back to the pizzeria that they currently have bought. To show this off, I currently have the first pizzeria selected, meaning if I hit this button, it's going to take me to the first pizzeria. Now if I go ahead and upgrade the floor plan, it's going to take us to the next pizzeria, and if I go ahead and go to the shop again and hit that same button, it's now going to take us to the new pizzeria that we've just purchased. The same thing is going to happen if we go ahead and upgrade our pizzeria a 3rd time, except this time you can now see that there is a new item in the menu showing that we have upgraded our pizzeria fully and we are no longer able to upgrade it. However, if we go back to the shop and hit that button a 3rd time, it's now going to take us back to our newly upgraded pizzeria. The next feature in the menu that we'll be going over are the sponsorship offers we're able to accept throughout the week. So starting with Monday, we're able to accept the Fizz Time Pop Soda advertisement, which you can see has a short description to it, as well as how much money we will earn if we accept it. So what this is going to do when we throw the item is it's going to give us the $250, as well as put some advertisements around the pizzeria, depending on what advertisement we just accepted. Once a sponsorship offer has been accepted, however, the advertisement for it will always be in the pizzeria for the rest of the week. So what these clone command blocks do here is copy each one of the banners that represent the different advertisements and paste them in all 3 pizzerias to make sure that the advertisements will always be in the building for the remaining duration of the game. In total, there are 5 different advertisements that we're able to accept, and every day is a different one. So once we complete a shift, our scoreboard for sponsor is going to go up by 1, which is then going to set a block in front of each one of these comparators here, depending which sponsorship is active for which day. So if the sponsorship item is thrown out the minecart as well as a block is in front of a comparator, this command block is going to be able to power these command blocks here, cloning the corresponding banner up into the pizzerias, as well as granting the player a certain amount of cash. If we choose to skip out on an advertisement, however, the block is going to be removed and move on to the next command block chain, stopping us from being able to access previous sponsorship offers. There's only a few things left to do before we're completely finished with the Tycoon, so the next thing I want to work on is actually getting the animatronics up on stage in whatever customization that we'd like. So just like all the attraction outlines, the way we're going to be able to set an animatronic on stage is by pressing the button on the stage. So say we want to go ahead and put an animatronic on the left side, we're going to scroll over to the animatronic inventory menu and place an animatronic that's able to be fit on that stage. So let's go ahead and put Mr. Hugs over at the left side by throwing that item, and it's then going to set the Mr. Hugs animatronic on that side of the stage. And say we want to do the same thing over at the right side, so let's go ahead and select a different animatronic. Let's go ahead and put Bucket Bob there, so by throwing this item, it's now going to summon the Bucket Bob animatronic up on the other side of the stage. Now, unlike all the outline attractions, the way we're going to be able to undo all of these animatronics is by throwing the item again. So we go ahead and open up the animatronic inventory menu and throw the items for the animatronics that we currently have up on stage, and that will go ahead and remove both of the animatronics, letting us put another in its place. And just like getting the attractions to be placed, this added in a few easy 1,000 command blocks, which brings our total command block count to just 10,500. And keep in mind, we're not even done with the Tycoon just yet. So each one of these platforms here represents a different stage, and each one of them is behind the pizzeria that it's assigned to. So for example, this first platform here is for the first stage for any pizzeria, so you can see that there are 3 smaller platforms here that represent the animatronics that can go on the first stage. Then as we go along, you can see that the platforms get bigger as they allow more animatronics to be set upon them, especially the ones that have multiple platforms for the animatronics to be set. This platform here, for example, is just for the animatronics that can get placed on the 4th stage type in the 3rd pizzeria floor plan. Now this setup is pretty similar to the way the attractions get set. The only difference is the removal mechanism, as it works in a different way than the attractions do. However, just like the attractions, it once again starts with a double AND gate setup here, depending how many slots are on the stage, so that way the animatronic gets placed on the correct side. So once it detects we have a certain stage type and the button on the specific stage has been pressed, it's then going to trigger all of these command blocks here and set a redstone block behind each one of these redstone dust lines, depending which side of the stage it is connected to. So once the redstone blocks have been set and we throw the specific item related to the animatronic, it's then going to power these command blocks here, which is then going to place the animatronic up on stage, and depending which animatronic has been set, it's either going to use a TP command as well as a clone command, as some of the animatronics do have blocks attached to them. So once all of the animatronics have been placed and we want to get rid of them, we turn around here and take a look at the removal system. Now this works differently than the attractions do, as instead of having a button to remove the area, these animatronics are entities, meaning we need to teleport the animatronics away. So we have more AND gates here which set this up. So this first command block here is once again going to check our stage type. So this one is the stage type match 4, and this command block here sees the position of the animatronic to make sure that the animatronic gets removed from the correct position, as sometimes we will need to replace blocks up on stage since the animatronic takes up too much room. So once both of these have been powered, it will then link into the second AND gate here, where another command block needs to be powered, this time making sure we throw the item of the animatronic that we want to remove, which is then going to power this final AND gate here, setting up this system right here, which is then going to teleport the animatronic back into the inventory area that we took a look at earlier. There is this extra command block here which makes sure that we are actually removing the animatronic. So every time we throw the item, it's then going to set a repeater on this block here. So every time we throw the item a second time round, this system is going to complete and is then going to be able to power these command blocks here. This works in the same way for every single command block for every single animatronic in every single stage, and just make sure that we don't end up removing an animatronic instead of placing one. So if I go ahead and give myself the correct scoreboard requirements to place any animatronic up on this final stage here, we're now going to be able to put any animatronic up on the stages, since we have the maximum pizzeria floor plan with the most amount of stage slots. So let's go ahead and go over to the single stage here and go ahead and put any animatronic. I'm just going to go ahead and put Music Man up here, and you can now see that we have gone ahead and teleported the animatronic up on stage for us to view. And once again, I'll show off if we want to get rid of Music Man, all we do is throw the item again and it will remove the animatronic. So just for the sake of it, I'm going to go ahead and put Music Man back and go ahead and fill the rest of the stage slots, just so we can see what it looks like with every animatronic active. So let's go ahead and put different animatronics of different types. Let's put Happy Frog up on the first slot. You can now see Happy Frog has been put there. Let's go ahead and put, I don't know, Lefty on the second slot. Get a different variety of animatronics, so like one from every different group. Let's go ahead and put Pan Stan up on this next one here. And then finally for this last slot, let's go ahead and put Funtime Chica. And now we have every animatronic taken on every single slot for our pizzeria. Now that we're able to put down any attraction or animatronic in our pizzeria, it's now time to move on to the final feature of the Tycoon and add in the pizzeria statistics. So at the side of the screen, you can see that there is a brand new scoreboard command set up, showing off all the different pizzeria labels. Now each one of these labels are a simplified version of the one over at the shop whenever we take a look at a new item. However, they are completely different from the ones over at the shop, so that way the two values don't collide with each other as we travel between the shop or the pizzerias. So the way this is going to work is by using a block detection command block, which detects when a certain block has been set within an outline, meaning that a specific attraction has been set within it. That's then going to turn on this comparator here powering these command blocks, which is going to set all the values at the side of the screen to the specific values that that attraction would give towards our pizzeria. Then when we remove the attraction, it's going to turn on this redstone torch behind this block here, powering the second chain of command blocks, which is going to remove all of those values, resetting us back to the values that we had before we had the new attraction set. Since the balloon barrel is already set up, I might as well place it down in our current pizzeria, and you can now see that the entertainment and revenue values have gone up by 1, since that command block is detecting that the yellow concrete block is in this spot. Then if we go ahead and remove the attraction, it's going to reset our values back to the way they were before the attraction was set in place. So this is going to work for every single attraction in every pizzeria, which is then going to become another factor to determine how much cash we're going to earn after every shift, as different attractions will have different values, which can increase the pizzeria statistics to give us more cash at the end of the day. Now with all of those statistic labels added in, we can now go ahead and take a look at how much cash we're going to earn during the day, which is determined by how many visitors stop on by the pizzeria. So as mentioned, the higher our pizzeria statistics are, the more people are going to visit, meaning we're going to earn more revenue. So in front of us here we have a few different command blocks, and each one here in a different row is going to add different values from the statistics to tally up how many visitors we get in total. So in this first command block row, it's going to add up the total amount of new visitors we get every day. Then this next one here is the total amount of returning visitors from previous days. This next one here is the total amount of visitors we get overall, and finally the total amount of visitors that were turned away. Now all of these values here are going to be added up in a scoreboard command just before we start the next shift. So you can see here we have a summary bar set up, which is going to add up all of the statistics from our previous pizzeria day, which is then going to show us the total amount of visitors we got, as well as how much revenue we've earned for the next day. Since those labels that we just took a look at are going to change depending on the pizzeria statistics, I've gone ahead and added in 4 random attractions, where you can now see we have an entertainment value of 15, a revenue boost of 11, an atmosphere of 3, and a risk of 1. Now for the time being, we're only going to be paying attention to the atmosphere and entertainment values, as those are what are going to determine how many visitors we get during the day. So starting off with the new visitors, the way we calculate this is by adding the atmosphere level and the entertainment value together, then multiplying that number by 2. So in this first command block here, we're going to add the atmosphere level to the new visitors scoreboard. That way it's going to set our value to 3, since we had an atmosphere level of 3. In this next command block here, it's going to add the entertainment value. So if we go ahead and click this button, our total is going to go up to 18, since 15 plus 3 is 18. Finally, in this last command block here, we have a custom value where it says multiply 2. This has a value of 2, so if we go ahead and click this button here, it's going to multiply 18 by 2 and bring up our total to 36 new visitors. Up next, let's determine how many returning visitors we're going to get from the previous day. Now obviously on Monday, we're not going to have any returning visitors since there wasn't a work shift before that. However, every day after Monday, there will always be a minimum of 25 returning visitors that come over that were there in the pizzeria the days before. So that starts off as our base 25, then we want to add that to the entertainment value multiplied by 2. So let's take a look at this command block here. It's going to add the entertainment value to the returning visitors scoreboard. So if we go ahead and activate this command block here, our returning visitors has been set up to 15. Then if we go ahead and move on to this next command block here, it's going to multiply that value by 2. Then finally, in this last command block here, it's going to add the base value of 25, bringing up our total to 55 returning visitors. Next, let's take a look at the total amount of visitors we get, which is actually quite simple, as all it does is add the sum of these two values together to give us our total amount of customers. So if we go ahead and activate both of these command blocks here, you can now see total visitors is set to 91, since 55 plus 36 gives us our value of 91. Now this final command block row here is a bit more interesting, as it determines how many people were turned away. So each pizzeria actually has a max capacity of people that they can hold. So for example, the stage 1 pizzeria can only hold 50 people, the stage 2 pizzeria can only hold 100, and the maximum pizzeria size can only hold 150 people. So in case our total visitor number is over the max capacity of our pizzeria, we're going to have to turn away some of those remaining people. So this first command block here is going to add the total visitors to the total amount turned away. Then immediately after that, it's going to subtract the pizzeria space from that value, giving us our value of turned away people. So for example, if we get 91 total visitors, but we only have a pizzeria size of 50, we're going to have to turn away 41 people. The last command for the customer value is in this command block right here, which detects in case there is an overflow of people where we need to turn away some of the customers. So for example, I showed off that we can only have a total of 50 people in our pizzeria. However, as you can see, our total visitors is still at 91. So this command block here is going to detect in case there is an overflow, which is then going to power this comparator and turn on this command block here, which is then going to subtract the amount of turned away people from the total visitors, which is then going to correct our value to the way it should be, bringing our total visitor count to 50, since our pizzeria can only hold up to 50 people. Let's now move on to the second part of the summary and take a look at how much revenue we're going to earn. So for this, I've gone ahead and changed a few of the team name colors just so that we're able to make a few things out. So the first one we're going to take a look at is the amount of food revenue we'll make, which is quite simple, as all it does is take the total amount of visitors and multiply that value by 5. So as we can see, we already have 50 total visitors. So if we go ahead and click this button here, it's going to bring our food revenue to 50. Then this command block right here is going to take that value and multiply it by 5. So if we go ahead and click this button here, our food revenue is now at 250. Moving on to the bonus and entertainment revenues, these two actually work together to combine to become the amount of bonus revenue we earn in total. So because of this, there isn't actually an entertainment revenue slot in the summary screen, so for the time being I've gone ahead and made a separate entertainment revenue scoreboard, that way we can see the values get added up. So for the entertainment revenue, it's going to be a base level of 25 plus the entertainment value of the pizzeria with that number multiplied by 2. So in this first command block here, we're going to add the entertainment value to the entertainment revenue, which is going to bring our value up to 15 since we had an entertainment value of 15. In this next command block here, it's going to add the base level of 25 to that, bringing us up to 40. Then in this last command block here, it's going to multiply that number by 2, which is going to bring us up to a total of 80. Back over at the summary screen, let's go ahead and take a look at the bonus revenue, which is going to be the total amount of visitors added to the total revenue value, added to the total amount of entertainment revenue with that number multiplied by 2. So in this first command block here, we're going to add the total amount of visitors to the total bonus revenue, which is going to bring us up to 50 since we had a total visitor count of 50. In this next command block here, we're going to add the revenue source to that, so that's going to bring us up to 61. Then this next command block here, we're going to add the entertainment revenue to that, and that's the 80 we just took a look at earlier. Then in this final command block here, we're going to multiply that number by 2, which is going to bring our bonus revenue to 282. In this next row is the salvage revenue. However, for the time being, we're not actually able to do anything with this just yet since we don't have the salvage minigame section set up. However, once we do get that in place, we will be able to earn extra revenue depending which animatronic we decide to salvage, which will then be added to the summary menu. So for the time being, let's move on to the total revenue, which is simple as all it does is add the food revenue to the bonus revenue, to the entertainment revenue, and the salvage revenue. So this first command block here adds the food revenue, then this next one is the bonus revenue, this third one here is the entertainment revenue, and in case we do have any salvage revenue, it would be added to that. However, for the time being, since we don't have any, our current total is 612. Keep in mind that the summary total is just an example of what could happen during the gameplay, as I just put down 4 random attractions in a pizzeria without even putting down any animatronics or accepting any sponsorship offers, which could increase our pizzeria statistics and add more revenue to our total. Now, something else I want to point out is all of the formulas I've used aren't exactly accurate to how this works in Pizzeria Simulator, but I did have to make a few balancing changes to this Minecraft recreation, as unlike Pizzeria Simulator, we're not going to be able to play any of the arcade minigames and earn some of the revenue that we would get by playing them. So now the last value we need to take a look at in the summary screen are the amount of new lawsuits we're going to have to deal with before we start the next day. Now this is quite simple, as all these command blocks do is check our risk factor, which is then going to determine the amount of new lawsuits we have to deal with. So as you can see here, if we have a risk factor ranging from 2 to 6, then it's going to give us a single lawsuit. If we have a risk factor ranging from 7 to 10, then we have to deal with 2 lawsuits. And finally here, if we have a risk factor over 11, then we have to deal with 3 different lawsuits before we start the next day. Now for the time being, I'm not going to be adding in that section just yet, as I'm going to wait until we work on all of the different endings before we add in the lawsuits themselves. Now that we've gone over the entire system and now how it works, I've gone ahead and connected the entire thing together to work in order whenever we enter that gameplay section. Now I've also gone ahead and added in some final touches to the Tycoon, such as this build you can see right here, which works as the achievement system. So if we decide to buy an entire set of animatronics and place them on the stages, we're then going to be given a specific achievement as well as a cash bonus to go along with it. This build right here, for example, is for the Rockstar animatronics. If we place one up on stage, it's going to set a block in between each one of these repeaters here, all the way until all of them have been placed, and this redstone block can power these command blocks. This first command block here is going to give us the text up on screen of the achievement name, then a subtitle saying how much cash we earn, then this third command block here is going to give us that cash bonus, and finally this last command block here is going to remove the redstone block, making it so that way we can't abuse the system and get an infinite amount of cash. The last 2 features I've added in are back over at the shopping menu, where you can now see I've added in a smaller version of the shop menu itself, which is where we're going to be sitting during all of the summary sequences. Then finally you can see all of these new command blocks down here, which are powering a certain system, which is actually making this armor stand of Helpy here dance in the shopping menu whenever we decide to do some shopping. In all of my other FNAF videos, I've always used separate armor stands for the different animatronic poses. However, by using the /data merge command, I'm able to change the position of a certain armor stand, making it look like it has this animation here and letting us have this dancing Helpy. And now as those final features added, with over 10,000 command blocks later, we have finally completed the entirety of the Tycoon part of this Minecraft recreation. So now let's go ahead and move on to the next part of Pizzeria Simulator and take a look at the first survival section by working on the office gameplay. Getting started on the office, here is the entire vent system connecting to the room that we're going to be inside. So if we take a look inside the office, you can see the posters as well as the computer terminal in the middle, but for the time being we're just going to be focusing on the vents either side of us, as the first feature we're going to be adding in is the flashlight mechanic to deal with the animatronics if they appear in one of the vents. The first thing we need is a detection system to make sure that the player is looking in either direction, and that's what both of these armor stands are going to do. So if we take a look at the commands for this, it's going to be in this repeating command block right here, which has been set to detect when the player looks at a certain entity. So for this example, it's going to be the nearest entity to the player that has the name of vent look. So both of those armor stands have the name of vent look, and if we look at either one of them, it's going to send an output to this comparator here, which is then going to turn on this command block and give us a slowness effect. Now what the slowness effect is going to do is distort the player's view, making it seem like we're going to be right up against the vent even though we're going to be standing in the middle of the office. Then when we look away from the air vent back towards the computer terminal, it's going to power this redstone torch here, which is then going to clear the slowness effect from the player. So if we go ahead and turn on the command block and teleport back into the office, now when I look towards the left vent, you can see we get the slowness effect because we have this armor stand in our view. Then as I look back towards the computer, that effect gets taken away. And the same thing's going to happen if I look towards the right side, we get the slowness effect, then as I look away from it, our view gets set back to normal. We can take this one step further, however, and detect which vent the player is looking at by using different entity tags. So as mentioned, both armor stands have the same name, but each one has a different tag. This lets us differentiate the two of them to get a different output depending which one we look at. So in this second setup right here, we have two more command blocks, where this first one here is once again looking for when the player looks at a certain entity, except this time it's looking for a certain tag instead of an entity name. So as you can see, the tag for the left armor stand is labeled left, and the one over at the right is labeled right. So if I go ahead and power both of them and teleport back into the office, now when I look towards the left vent, you can see we get a message in chat saying that we're looking left, and when I look over towards the right, it says that we're looking right. And this is the setup we're going to be using to make sure that we deal with the right animatronics, as say we're looking over at the left vent, we don't want to be able to scare away the animatronics that are over at the right vent. With that now set up, we next need to add in the animatronics themselves, so that way we can repel them if they approach the office. So each one of these orange concrete blocks represents a different area that they can go to, with the red ones being when they're about to attack. So here you can see the 4 animatronics we have to deal with, depending which one we decide to salvage. Now these armor stands aren't going to be the ones that move around the vent system, and will instead only be used for the jump scares. So behind them we have the 4 placeholder armor stands that will act as the animatronic movements as they travel throughout the vent system. So depending who is active each night, each one will start in this back row of the vent system and will slowly make their way towards the red concrete, which is when we'll have to shine the light towards them. This is the entire setup for how each animatronic is going to work, and I started with Molten Freddy. Now this is very different from how I've made animatronic movements in the past, so I'll do my best to explain this new design. So as you can see, we have a scoreboard named Molten Freddy Move with the number 150, which is the countdown to when Molten Freddy is going to move next. So in this back command block here, it's going to detect when we have a score of 150 or less, which is then going to trigger this command block to remove a digit from that number. This is then going to start a rapid countdown, taking that number all the way to 0. When that happens, this command block right here is going to detect it, which will then power this command block, setting our score back to 150, which is then going to restart the countdown. Now at the same time, another command block will teleport the placeholder armor stand for Molten Freddy, which will then move it to any of the rooms that are connected to the one he's currently in. The way each placeholder moves to the next room is by teleporting to a random armor stand within a 15 block radius. This makes it so that Freddy will only be able to move to the armor stands that are directly across from him, since they are each 15 blocks apart. So as you can see, every time the countdown reaches 0, Freddy is then going to move over to the next room. Now by using armor stands to teleport to, this also lets us have a tag attached to each one, as well as having a randomized sorter. This means there is no set path for Freddy to take, and he will always move around the vent system randomly until he reaches either of the red concretes. Once that happens, the countdown is then going to stop, and then the red concrete armor stand will have its tag changed, stopping any other placeholders from going onto the same block. This makes it so that no other active animatronics can be on the same vent at the same time. This is because each of the orange concrete armor stands have a different tag than the red one does that the animatronics would normally teleport to. This is then going to start the first survival mechanic, as when the armor stand teleports onto the red concrete, a play sound is going to play in the corresponding air vent, letting the player know that there is something nearby. This then starts another countdown where we only have a few seconds to react, as by not looking towards the vent, the countdown will start to deplete. If it reaches 0, then the jump scare armor stand will be teleported in front of the player and end their run. If we look at the vent while the placeholder is there, however, then one of these two circuits is going to activate depending which vent the animatronic is in. If we look at the correct air vent, then the scoreboard is going to start to increase by 1 all the way until the number reaches 150. If that happens, then it will reset the placeholder back to the vent system, which will then start the first countdown again and restart the movement cycle of the animatronic. With the animatronic active, notice how when I look towards the vent the number goes up, but looking away from it makes it go back down again. This gives us a sense of multitasking, as say there are animatronics in both air vents, we're able to look left and right to deal with both of them at the same time, but we still need to look at both for a set amount of time to prevent the jump scare from happening. With all 4 animatronics finished, let's next move on to the ventilation fan, as if it's turned on, the animatronics will be able to move towards the office faster. Before we add that in, however, we first need to make the toggle for the fan itself. So the way this works is if the fan is turned on, a redstone input will power these command blocks here, which will then trigger a repeating play sound to make it sound like the fan is turned on. Then when power is removed, it will turn off those command blocks, but then trigger another play sound effect indicating that the fan is switched off. Those 2 outputs can now power the mechanics of the fan itself, with the most important one being the room temperature. So when the shift starts, the room is going to be at 60 degrees, however it will start to increase all the way to a maximum of 120 if the fan is switched off. This will then cause the player to black out, making them restart the sequence. So if I turn the fan on, these 2 redstone blocks here are going to power the hoppers under them, stopping the item from inside of them from cycling between the 2. This then prevents this command block here from increasing the temperature level. Now on the opposite side we have the exact same setup, except this time instead of adding to the temperature score, it's going to remove it by 1 every time this comparator gets activated. Now just like the 120 limit, there is a minimum that the fan can reach. So when the score reaches 60, this command block right here is going to keep our score in place by powering these 2 hoppers, making it so that we can't go any lower. Now let's take a look at the animatronic movements again to make the placeholders teleport faster if the fan is turned on. This is pretty simple, as it just involves an additional countdown for each one of the animatronics, which will deplete their timers at an even faster rate. On top of that, the vent fan will always be playing noises at the player's position, meaning it'll be harder to hear any of the noises that are going on in the vents. To wrap up the fan features, I've now added in the toggle for the fan itself, so that way we can turn it off by throwing this item. This then sends an output to the system we took a look at earlier, powering the corresponding command blocks. Then if we want the fan turned back on again, we just throw the replacement item we get, which will then start to make the temperature go back down again until it reaches 60 degrees. Up next, let's make the additional office resources we can use, and once again we will be using chest and minecarts to open up the different inventory menus. So during the office sequences, our hotbar is going to look something like this, with each different item and book representing the different resources and menus that we can open. First though, let's take a look at the vent menu, since we're still working on the vent system itself. So as alternative defenses to the flashlight, we have a motion detector, an audio decoy, as well as a silent ventilation unit to use against the animatronics. Now each one of these systems has their advantages, however only one of them can be used at a time. Starting with the motion detector, we need another room to be in so that way we can see the entire vent layout all at once. So each one of these blocks are the different rooms in the vents, and when any of the animatronics move, we want the blue concrete to be replaced with a different block to indicate that there is movement in that area. The current setup involves a repeating command block for every room, which then sends an output when it detects that there is an armor stand within the same room. So each one of these repeating command blocks are going to execute positioned at a certain block, which this block is going to be for the armor stands that the placeholders teleport to when the animatronic moves around the vent system. Then the second part of the command is if an entity with the tag of animatronic is within the distance of 0.5 blocks. If that happens, then it's going to power this comparator here, which can then go into any output that we'd like. So for this example, I'll teleport the lefty armor stand around the vent system, so you can now see that this comparator has been turned on because the lefty animatronic is in the corresponding room. Then if I go ahead and teleport him a few more times just so you can see the other comparators go off, you can now see that they're all going off in different places depending where the lefty armor stand has been put. To finish this up, I've now added the set block commands that will replace the blue concrete with redstone blocks for a quick flicker effect. Now since each command strip stays powered once active, there needs to be a shut-off system so that way if two animatronics swap places, the motion detector will still be able to detect it. So to work around this, the strip that is currently powered will have its comparator removed until the start of the next movement cycle. When that happens, this chain of command blocks down here will power, which will then replace all the comparators back again, allowing power throughout the system. So with all 4 animatronics currently active, we can see this happening in real time, and you can see how this will help us throughout the gameplay, knowing the position of all 4 animatronics. Next, let's move on to the audio lure, which will take place in a copy of the room we just took a look at. This time, however, there is a button on each one of these blocks, which will let us decide where in the vents we want the audio lure set. This whole mechanic is going to revolve around this single armor stand. This is because we're going to make the placeholders teleport to this armor stand whenever they're in a certain radius of each other. So by pressing the buttons in the room, we can then teleport the lure wherever we want and distract the animatronics that are nearby. Once again, this is another easy setup, as all we need is some TP commands to teleport the armor stand to the room that correspond with the button that we press. The only other command is this one right here that makes the lure itself work. So this is an execute command that's running at the position of the lure armor stand, and it will teleport all the placeholders within a 13 block radius to it at a constant rate. The final touches needed for this system is to add an indication to show the range of the audio while inside of the room. So now, depending which button we press, a small ring will appear around the room that we currently have selected, letting us know where the audio lure is currently placed, as well as its effective range in the surrounding area. With an animatronic now active, we should now be able to set down the audio lure in any room nearby, and it will then force the animatronic to teleport towards it. So as we just saw, there's an animatronic within this middle vent right here, so if we go ahead and set the audio lure in the room right next to it, we should now see that the armor stand has been forced to teleport into this room. So since Scraptrap was just in the room across from us within a 13 block range, the animatronic will now be forced to stay into this room until we decide to deactivate the audio. Finally, we have the silent ventilation system, which acts as a quieter but less effective vent fan. Now this is almost the same setup as the main fan too, and the temperature limit still applies to this setup. Now the main differences between the two is that this system makes no noise when active, however instead of decreasing the temperature at a constant rate, it will only decrease the temperature by a single degree. This makes it not as reliable as the main fan since it's not fast enough to cool down the room to 60 degrees, however it could still be helpful in some situations. Now that all 3 defenses have been added, I've now made this setup to make sure that only one system can be used at a time. So if we open up the vent menu and throw the silent ventilation item, a command block will then power the silent vent as well as place an item above the one we just threw, showing us that it's currently in use. Now let's head on over to the audio lure room where the active sign has now moved over and the silent ventilation has been deactivated. But let's go ahead and place a lure in a random spot and then head on over to the motion detector, because now if we go on back to the audio lure room, you will see that the audio has been removed since we selected a different item since then. Lastly is the red die at the bottom of the chest, which will be our way back to the office, as if we throw it we get taken back to the main room where you can see our last selected system is still active. With that, however, we have now finished all 3 office resources, and now it's time to add in the main gameplay, which involves all the tasks. So in this minecart menu, we have the 3 labels for the different types of tasks we need to complete, as well as the individual orders in the rows next to them. This is the setup for the first 5 tasks, and each one is split into 3 segments. Firstly, when we throw a task from the minecart, these command blocks are then going to send an output into this first chain, which is then going to set the player's score to whatever task we are currently doing. So for this example, our task score is going to be 1 since we throw the first task. Next, our progress score is going to be set to 130, which is the timer for how long it takes each task to finish. Next is this command block here, which is going to replace the item we throw with an item labeled in progress, letting us know which task is currently active. Finally, in this top command block, it's going to place a comparator in between these 2 command blocks here, which are going to be the countdown for how long it takes for each task to complete. Part 2 starts when the countdown finishes and checks to see which task was thrown. This then powers this AND gate, which then activates these command blocks. This first one here is going to set our task progress to 151, and this next one here is going to remove the comparator from in between these 2 command blocks here, which is going to stop the countdown while also resetting it for the next task. Then the in progress item as well as the starting comparator will be removed, letting us know that the task has been completed, as well as stopping us from doing the same task again. Finally, the player's task score will be set to 0, making sure that it doesn't start another task once the countdown has ended. Lastly is this third setup, which is for restarting the tasks if another one is started while one is already active. This first command block here checks to see if the score is anything but 1, which would mean that another task has been started or a task has just finished. The second command block then detects to see if there's an item in the minecart where the task item should be, meaning that the in progress item is currently there since we already have a score of 1. If both power, it will then replace the in progress item with the original task while also stopping the current task's countdown and then resetting it back to its original number. Now there is another way that this command block chain activates, and that's in this command block here, which is checking to see if the player is standing in the office. This prevents us from completing any of the tasks while looking at any other menus on the computer terminal. Going back to part 2 quickly, this top command block that I skipped over is to remove the comparator that we just took a look at once a task is finished. This simply prevents the task from from resetting itself once it's completed if we leave the office to use one of the office resources. To see what this is going to look like in-game, let's go ahead and order the first task, where you can see the order cups item is going to be replaced with an in-progress item, showing that this item is currently being ordered. Then when the countdown ends, the item is going to be removed to indicate that we have completed that task. Now for this next example, I'm going to go ahead and order the plates where you can see it's currently in progress, but then I'm going to go ahead and order the napkins, and you can now see that the previous task has been replaced with the new one, so that way we're not able to do two different tasks at the same time. Now that the tasks are done, we can now move on to the 3 equipment upgrades which will make the order times go by faster. There's the ×2 printer, the high-speed uplink, as well as the hired handyman. Now each one of these costs cash to unlock, so what I've done is added the cash counter from the Tycoon over to this section as well, alongside the temperature meter, so that way we know what resources we have to work with. Just like how we made the animatronics move faster when the vent fan is turned on, we can make the tasks complete faster by adding an additional timer to each task after each upgrade has been purchased. The high-speed uplink, for example, decreases the order time from 8 seconds per task down to 6 seconds. So if we have over the amount of cash needed to buy the upgrade and we throw the appropriate upgrade in the minecart, the hopper clock will then be able to deplete the time faster whenever we've started doing a task. Each upgrade only works for one type of task, however, so the high-speed uplink will only speed up supply orders. So when we buy an upgrade, a score will be added to label which upgrade we just purchased. This then starts the first part of an AND gate which checks to see which task should go by faster. So to know which task we are currently doing, another score has been added to the task system, which will then set the corresponding task type score to 1 whenever we start an order. This will then power the other half of the AND gate, which will then allow the timer to speed up. If the order is finished or cancelled, however, the score will be set back down to 0 and closes off the timer. This system also lets us carry over the upgrades to later shifts since they don't expire after logging off. However, to make sure that the player doesn't try to buy the same upgrade again, another command will activate when an upgrade is bought, which will then replace the item with a redstone block. The 2 comparators are then removed from in front of these 2 command blocks here, just to make sure that the system cannot power again. The final feature needed for the tasks are the noises they make when they're active. This uses the same setup as the upgrades do, just with a different score number to power the system. So if we don't have an upgrade purchased, the orders are then going to make their normal loud sounds, which are played from these play sound command blocks. Then if we buy the upgrade, the second system will then power this hopper clock over here, which is then going to play the same sound effect but at a much lower volume. For this next part, we're back at the Tycoon section to work on the advertisements we get if we accept the sponsorship offer. So earlier on, we saw how these commands are going to send an output whenever we throw the accept item. So what I've done is I've added another command to the system to add a score for every sponsor we accept. This will let us know how many ads can play during the shift, as well as which order they appear in. Each advertisement has a chance to play when the player is looking at the monitor for a set period of time. So the idea I have is to use the same command blocks used for the vent look detection, but to reverse the output so that way it can power a system when we're looking away from the vents but towards the computer. This will then start a timer counting down to when the advertisement will appear on screen. So by using a similar setup, we can have a countdown deplete while looking in a certain direction, but we'll cancel the timer if the player is looking away. Now the next part we need is something that can determine which ad needs to play first, and for that we'll be using these AND gates to check which sponsor is active, as well as detecting if the timer has ended. This can then send an output into these command blocks and play the advertisements themselves. A few things needed to happen to get this to work, and it required a lot more command blocks for each part. Firstly, we need to know which sponsor was accepted first, so that way it would be the first ad to play. So this first row of command blocks here does just that by detecting when a sponsor is accepted for the first time. This then powers the command blocks in front of it, which are going to remove all the comparators from the rest of the row, meaning that the next time we accept a sponsor, it won't be able to power these command blocks. Now the first command block in each row is going to set a redstone block in the system in front of it, where the next part is to make sure that the ads play in the order that we accepted them in. When a redstone block gets set on top of the orange concrete, it then powers these 2 AND gates, which both power 2 parts of the system. This first part is the one that makes sure that an ad is ready to play by seeing if the sponsor score is set to 1. This will then set a block in the system in front of that, connecting the AND gate to the commands that will play the ad if the timer has run out and the sponsor score is active. To then get the ads to play in order, the block connecting the AND gate will be set to air, so that way the same ad doesn't play again. Next, the redstone block will be placed in every system after it up until it reaches the next active sponsor. The way the system knows how to do this is by using the second AND gate, which will remove all redstone blocks from the rows after it, but only if the sponsor for the next row has an active score of 1. This makes sure that the next ad to play only comes from a fully powered system. The setup even works if we decide to skip over some sponsors, since the system will keep on placing down redstone blocks in all future systems until it reaches the next active sponsor. This then allows the block to get placed in between the AND gate and the command that plays the ad itself. And no matter what order we accept the sponsors in, the cycle will continue until all active active sponsors have played their ads. Now moving on to the ads themselves, this is a lot more simple than the system we just took a look at. So whenever a certain ad plays, it's going to set a redstone block in the corresponding build in front of it. First, the TP command is going to constantly teleport the player into the office space where they're forced to look towards the monitor. Then the inventory is going to be cleared of any items to prevent the player from using any resources. The computer itself is also going to have a visual change depending which ad appears on screen. In this chest there are 5 different stained glass blocks which represent the different ads that can replace the default blue screen. So this command chain next to us is for the Fizz Time Pop Soda ad, so this command block here is going to replace the item frame with the magenta stained glass for this ad. Now there's also this grey dye at the bottom which is for skipping the ad, which is another system that will start when an ad plays. This next command block is going to set a redstone block in this spot next to us, which will slowly activate all these repeaters until it gives us that item which we can then throw. That will be detected by this command block here, which is then going to remove all the redstone blocks from the system, letting the player move around again and also giving them back their items. Now during the runtime of the ad, all tasks and office resources are also going to be deactivated. This means if we have the silent ventilation or the audio lure active, both will be unpowered and it will increase the risk of animatronics moving into the surrounding vents. On top of that, the ad is going to play a song so that way it makes it even harder to hear any noise. An extra timer will also be active for the animatronic movements, making them move even faster due to the loud sounds coming from the office. To show this off, let's now activate one of the ads, and you can now see that we've been teleported inside the office unable to move until we throw the skip ad item after 5 seconds have passed. Now we have our normal items back again and we can continue doing our tasks and dealing with any animatronics if needed. Moving on to the last 2 gameplay mechanics, the next thing I've added is a system that stops us from using any computer menus if we look towards the vents. This once again uses the vent look detection commands to remove the books from our inventory if we look towards the vent, and adds them back again when we look towards the computer. This prevents us from starting any tasks if we're not looking directly towards the monitor. The final feature once again involves the computer, where now we're given the option to toggle the screen on and off. And just like the vent fan, we do this by throwing a certain item which powers these 2 systems depending which option is selected. If we throw the item labeled on, this redstone torch is then going to power all of these command blocks, which is going to remove all the books from the player's inventory, as well as remove the glass from the computer item frame, indicating that the monitor is turned off. At the same time, the player is going to get teleported into the office just in case we turn off the computer while inside the rooms for the motion detector or the audio lure. The next 2 commands are then going to remove the timer comparator from the ad system, so that way the ad can't play if the screen isn't on. Then the task progress score is going to be set to 151, stopping any current tasks from being able to finish. Finally, this top command block is going to give us an item labeled computer off, which is what we can use to turn the monitor back on again. When we throw that item, this next system is going to power, which is going to restore the player's inventory. This first command is going to give the player the toggle item back, then the next 3 return all 3 books for each computer menu. After that, the monitor item frame will return to default blue, and finally the ad timer comparator will be re-added to start the ad timer system all over again. Now with all the gameplay finished, we now need to connect the Tycoon section to the office and make sure that all the right systems start. So in the Tycoon Pizzeria menu, we originally skipped over the finished item, but now we're finally going to add some function to it so that way it takes us to the office. When it's thrown, this command block is going to detect it, and then the player is going to be teleported into this black box. When that happens, the player is then going to have their inventory cleared, and all scoreboards are going to be cleared from the side of the screen. Then after a few ticks of delay, these 2 command blocks are then going to activate, which is going to set our office shift score to 1 and our Tycoon shift score to 0, which are linked to unpower any Tycoon commands and start all the office ones. After that happens, we get teleported into the office, and all of these command blocks are then going to power every system needed for the gameplay. Most of these are for the computer menu items we get in our inventory, however the rest of them are for powering each one of the different office mechanics. For example, you can see that in some builds such as the ad system, redstone inputs are missing, and that's so that they don't power while the office section isn't active. The same is used for each animatronic, but these require an extra step before they begin to work. To make sure that only the salvaged animatronics are active, each one has an AND gate connected to it that requires the office section to be active and to have a salvage score of 1. When that happens, the comparators will be added to the movement timers, and then the animatronic placeholders will be able to teleport around the vent system. This is done by removing each one of these redstone blocks that constantly teleport each one of these armor stands on top of their command blocks. Now whenever the movement timers end, they'll be able to move around each room. There is an exception to this system, however, and that involves Lefty, since we're able to purchase him from the shop. So now if we buy Lefty, the AND gate will then be able to power and activate his systems, regardless if we've salvaged him or not. Finally, we need to restart the entire office system for whenever we complete the shift or get jump scared. Starting with completing the shift, this is done by finishing all the tasks and then logging off. So the system beneath us is going to do just that by adding a block in between each one of these repeaters whenever we complete the task. That way this redstone block can power the line and activate these 2 command blocks. This is then going to give the player a log off item which they can then throw, which will be detected by this command block, which can then finish the shift. Since there are so many things to start over, getting the office to restart involves quite a few command blocks. So to make it easier to understand, I've sectioned it off into 3 separate rows. There's this first row that replaces any missing comparators or redstone blocks in each system, and in the second row, each command block is set to refill all the task items, which is done by duplicating the items in a chest back into the minecart menus. Every office scoreboard also needs changing, so that way all the timers are set back to their original number before the start of the next shift. Soon after all systems have been reset, this small chain is then going to clear all items and scoreboards from the screen and then play a quick winning theme before being taken to the next section. Then there is this side system here, which is for getting the ad system ready for the next shift. When the first ad is accepted, a redstone block will be set in place in any one of these corresponding setups. Then when the shift ends, a second redstone block will be set, which is then going to power the second part of this AND gate, which re-adds the comparator in front of the command for the first ad that we accepted. This once again makes sure that all the ads play in the right order. All of these commands are going to power if we throw the log off item. However, in case we get jump scared or pass out, I've added this copy of the same command system to power instead. This time, however, it will send the player back to the Tycoon section instead of moving them on to the salvage sequence. So what these additional command blocks are going to do is teleport the player back to the shopping menu after the game over screen, where they're then given the Tycoon menu items back and have the option to try again. With that, however, the office section has been completed and every feature has now been added using just under 1,000 command blocks. So now it's time to move on to the last main gameplay segment and start working on the salvage sections that take place in between each shift. This is the room where all of the salvages are going to be taking place. Now, since there's no official look at the room itself, I decided to use a rundown brick texture to go along with the back alley screens. The only feature in here is the table in the middle of the room where the animatronics are going to be sitting across from us, and we get to choose whether to salvage it or to throw it back outside. Each animatronic is a separate armor stand from those in the office section, since each one has 3 different poses before jump scaring the player. Now, the way we determine which armor stand gets teleported into the room each day is with a new scoreboard that tracks to see which day of the week it is. When the game starts, we're going to have a score of 1 for Monday, then every day this score is going to increase by 1 until Thursday, where our score is going to be set to 4. These command blocks are then going to detect which score is active, and then will teleport the correct armor stand into the build, while also returning the previous armor stands back on top of these command blocks. Next, we need to choose whether to salvage the animatronic or to throw it away. The way we do that is by using one of 2 items, with the first one being labeled throw it back into the alley and the other one being labeled proceed with salvage. Now, choosing to throw the salvage away will power this command system here, which is going to end the section by teleporting the player back into the Tycoon to start the next day. Then the weekday score is going to increase by 1, which teleports the next day's animatronic in front of the desk. The second option is to salvage the animatronic, which leads us to the next gameplay segment where we have to complete the maintenance checklist. This is going to be done by using a command book which sends an output whenever we click on certain words. When triggered, it's then going to start a system that has a chance to move the animatronics to their next attack phase. Each movement is randomly selected every time we click on one of the boxes. This works by having this armor stand randomly teleport to these 3 others, just like how the animatronics move in the vent system. The repeating command blocks behind them are then detecting whenever that teleporting armor stand is in the position next to them, and will send an output into this command block to move the animatronic armor stand by using a data command. All of this happens with as short of a delay as possible, that way we can't see the animatronic move when we put down the book. And in case you want to know how the command book works and try it for yourself, I'll leave the link to the website that I use in the description, as well as for all the other Minecraft tools I use for my builds. For this, all you need to do is write any text in this box here, then you're able to add a function to it by highlighting any word and giving it a click event. Now you can add whatever command you want in this text box, and when you click on the text in Minecraft, it's going to run that command. Once you're done, the website is going to generate the give command for you, that way you can copy it and paste it in game. The last few commands here are for another part of the system, since what we just went over wouldn't be able to work by itself, since each repeating command block is set to needs redstone. This is because if all command blocks were constantly powered, the data commands would all be active at once and wouldn't be able to change the animatronic's movement. So to fix this, a redstone block is going to be set 2 blocks in front of the teleporting armor stand's position, that way only one command system can be powered at a time. Then when the armor stand moves to another position, the redstone block is going to be removed to let the next command system turn on. Now every time we click on any of the boxes, the animatronic has a chance to move to any 3 phases or to stay stay in the same position. So next we need to make sure that the animatronic can't go back to a previous movement phase, and to also jump scare the player after the final movement has happened. In a similar way to how the vent attack system is, this works by having an additional command block change the previous armor stance entity tag every time the animatronic moves to the next attack phase. This prevents the teleporting armor stand from being able to go back to a past position, since they can only teleport to the entities with a certain tag attached to them. The jump scare works in the exact same way, except this time the animatronic has to move at least once before the armor stand can teleport to the 4th position. This prevents the player from being jump scared immediately after the first audio tape is played, but also makes sure that the animatronic has a chance to stay still between any stage of movement. If the jump scare activates, it will then power the command blocks next to it, causing the player to lose the salvage and end the run. This then powers the animatronic systems to attack the player during the remaining office sections. To prevent the jump scare from happening, the player is given a taser to revert the animatronic back to its neutral state. When we accept the salvage, we'll be given this item to throw whenever we want, which will reset the animatronic back to its first position. This is done by giving each armor stand its original entity tag back, and by removing the teleporting armor stand away from the commands, stopping it from powering and moving the animatronic. This feature has a limit, however, as the taser can only be used up to 3 times before it starts to damage the animatronic and decrease its salvage value. So on screen there's a scoreboard to show the current value of the animatronic, and every shock over 3 is going to decrease the number by 50. This continues until the value reaches 0, where the scoreboard shows how much revenue we're going to make at the end of the section. With the main gameplay finished, we now need to add the audio prompts and voice lines that play during each testing phase. To start, a dialogue line is going to be sent in chat explaining the instructions to the player. After a short delay, this scoreboard timer is then going to activate, which acts as a duration for how long the audio is going to last. Since there are 2 different audio tapes that can play, this AND gate here is checking to see how many prompts have played so far by using a scoreboard that increases after every tape. This is connected to the system here that activates a play sound until the timer ends. Once that happens, this command block here is going to send an output to reset the timer, as well as send another text in chat telling the player to document their results by using the maintenance checklist. To make sure that the next audio prompt doesn't start until a box is checked, this command block is going to detect whenever the teleporting armor stand moves from its position, since it will always teleport to another armor stand whenever a box is clicked on. This then activates these 2 command blocks here, where this first one is going to add the salvage audio count by 1, letting this AND gate know how many have played so far. This second command block is then going to set a redstone block to power this line, activating the next dialogue line again before playing the next audio prompt. This cycle continues 5 times over the course of the section until 5 boxes have been checked. After the 3rd tape is finished, another AND gate is going to power, which plays the second audio prompt for the remaining 2 tapes. Once all 5 have played, a command block is going to send an output to power this second setup that ends the salvage section. This starts by sending a final message in chat before then clearing the inventory of any items. After that, the animatronic that was salvaged is going to be activated for the remaining office gameplay. Finally, the animatronic value is going to be added to the salvage scoreboard, that way the player earns the same amount of revenue when they're taken to the summary sequence. The last feature needed for the gameplay is the pause mechanic to stop the tape from playing. For this, we're given another item to throw which toggles between the 2 options. Pausing the tape is going to remove multiple comparators from the build, stopping the timer from counting down, as well as stopping the audio from playing. All of them are then re-added again by throwing the replacement item. This mechanic requires an extra step, however, since the audio needs to pause when the taser has been used. So if the audio is playing and we use the taser, this AND gate is then going to toggle the option by removing the pause item from the inventory. Then if we want to replay the audio again, we're given the play item to do so, and can continue with the salvage. Now, as every animatronic added, this is the completed setup for all 4 salvage sequences. Each one uses the same commands to work, however every armor stand has a different entity tag for each animatronic, meaning we need a different command book to teleport the armor stands needed for each section. Each book is given to the player on the day needed whenever these repeating command blocks detect that the corresponding day is active. All of these command blocks are then going to get powered, which turns on all the gameplay features needed for the salvage. Something else is Lefty's alternate appearance, where if Lefty is bought before his salvage section on Thursday, this sign saying "I'm already inside" is going to be cloned into the room instead of Lefty's armor stand. Obviously we're not able to salvage the sign, so the only option is to throw it away. Next, we need to keep track of what day of the week it is, that way the player only enters the salvage room when there's an animatronic available. So this command block is checking to see what day of the week it is, and a second part of the setup will be powered by a redstone block after the office section has been completed. If it's days 1 through 4, then this first repeater line is going to activate, which is then going to start the salvage sequence. If it's day 5, however, then the second AND gate is going to power this next repeater line, skipping over the salvage and taking the player back to the pizzeria. For day 6, we need a different setup, as this time once the office has been beaten, one of the endings is going to play out. Now normally the weekday score is increased right after the summary sequence, but this time it's going to happen sooner since there's no more gameplay after the 6th day. So when it's Saturday and the office section has been beaten, the weekday score is going to be set to 7, powering these next two setups. This second AND gate is checking to see how many salvages were accepted, that way it knows what ending should play. So regardless if the salvage was beaten or lost, every time we accept the salvage, this scoreboard is going to increase by 1, eventually sending an output through this command block if all 4 have been accepted. If it's powered while the weekday score is at 7, the full system can then power, which starts the main completion ending. If there are any less than 4 animatronics salvaged, however, then the mediocrity ending is going to play instead. But with these commands now working, the salvage section is now finished, which wraps up the core gameplay of Pizzeria Simulator, where now we can start working on those different endings. On top of that, there is also one final gameplay sequence to add involving the lawsuits, which will then fully complete this project. To start, we're going to work on the completion ending since we've already gone over how to get it and because it's the main ending of the game. Firstly, I've added all the voice lines of Scrap Baby and Henry that play throughout the entire cutscene, that way the visuals can be added on top of them when a sentence is being said. Each one of the scenes is a different room that the player gets teleported to at a set time. However, instead of being teleported only once, a repeating command block is constantly going to trigger the command, that way the player is forced to face a certain direction and is unable to move. This lets us set the player to spectator mode, that way the HUD doesn't take up the screen, while also making sure that the player doesn't fly away. None of the endings have any interactive gameplay, and each one is going to play out in the same way. However, I'll still show off some of the stills from the ending, such as the animatronics in the vent system burning in the fire. Now while most of the visuals are still images, there are some small animations involved, such as the flashing light that appears on the monitor. There's also some scenes that show areas from past FNAF games, and for those I used the exact same locations that I built for those games' recreation. Once the cutscene is ended, a second one is then going to start, where this time Tutorial Unit has a few lines to say while more visuals are being shown off. At the final screen, the game is then going to end when the player is given the certificate of completion. The only other ending to have 2 different cutscenes like this is when the player gets the insanity ending. Speaking of which, let's now take a look at the insanity ending and how to get it. For this, a new system is required that checks to see if the Egg Baby data archive was purchased from the Tycoon and when the player has turned off the computer monitor while standing in the office. This then starts another speech from Henry, however this time instead of being taken out of the office, we're going to be staying in the room facing the computer while the dialogue is being said. Once that's finished, the main cutscene starts where Tutorial Unit says his lines and then the certificate of insanity is then received. And to make sure that the player isn't jump scared during this ending, all the office systems are going to be turned off to let the ending play out. Moving on to the next ending, this is the setup for the mediocrity ending, which is earned by not buying any attractions or salvaging any animatronics. So when the game starts, these 2 command blocks are going to stay powered until a salvage is accepted or any cash is spent in the shop. This will then set a redstone block to power this next AND gate, which only sends an output if the weekday score matches 7. However, if at any point the player's score for the first 2 requirements change, the AND gate is then going to unpower and remove the redstone block, cutting off the rest of the system. If both command blocks stay powered after the final office shift is completed, it will then start a single cutscene where the player is made fun of for doing absolutely nothing for the entire game. This then leads to the player being given the certificate of mediocrity. In a similar way to that ending, there's a short and unnamed bad ending if the player completes the week but doesn't salvage all 4 animatronics. Instead of playing a cutscene, however, the player will be teleported to a copy of the salvage room where Henry has a short voice line before then ending the game without rewarding a certificate. Next is the blacklisted ending, which requires the player to have a risk and liability score of 50 or higher when the week is completed. This will then be detected by these 2 command blocks to power the AND gate, which will then teleport the player to the ending to watch the final cutscene. Finally, the last ending to add is the bankruptcy ending, which requires the player to have a negative amount of cash when dealing with any lawsuits. So if we get any lawsuits, we'll be taken to this room where there's another Helpy armor stand switching between 2 poses while looking at the papers on the desk. So before starting on the ending itself, we first need to recreate the different lawsuits and how to deal with them. Like we saw earlier in the summary sequence, if the pizzeria has a risk score of 2 or more, then a single lawsuit is going to be filed. The higher the score gets, the more lawsuits are going to be received, until a maximum of 3 can be given at one time. After the amount is shown off in a summary, this chain of command blocks here is then going to activate, which is then going to teleport the player to the room we just took a look at. In total, there are 10 different lawsuit scenarios, and each one works by once again using a command book. Now Now each one has a description of the situation before the final page shows the different actions we can take, which is to settle the lawsuit or to fight it. Before we can decide the outcome, however, the right lawsuit books need to be given to the player at the right time. And since multiple lawsuits can be given every day throughout the week, the right combination needs to power to make sure that the right books are given without any repeats. So this entire build relies on 3 scoreboard objectives to work, those being the new lawsuits, the lawsuits total, and the lawsuit shift. Starting with the most simple combination, if the player receives 1 new lawsuit after completing their shift and they have 1 lawsuit in total and the lawsuit shift is active, then the first lawsuit book will be given to the player. Now the order that the books are given in is not randomized, so at any point if the player gets their first lawsuit, this is going to be the book that is given. Now if the player gets 1 new lawsuit but their lawsuit total is set to 2 and the lawsuit shift is active, then the player is only going to be given the second lawsuit book since they only got 1 new lawsuit that day and have already been given the first book in a previous shift. The same goes on for the remaining setups where the player only gets 1 new lawsuit, which continues on 15 times since there can be a total of 15 lawsuits given throughout all 5 days. But since there are only 10 lawsuits in total, after 10 have already been given out, the system will start to recycle all the cases again, starting back at book 1. Moving on to the next row, this deals with any lawsuits when 2 of them are given at once, so this first command block here is set to if new lawsuits matches 2 instead of 1. Then if the player has 2 lawsuits in total and the lawsuit shift is active, then the player will have to deal with both books 1 and 2 at the same time. Now the reason why lawsuits total starts at 2 this time is because the player is given 2 lawsuits at once and will have 2 lawsuits in total for their first time being sued. And just like the last row, once 10 books have been given already, the lawsuits will start to recycle and start to reuse the first few cases. Lastly, this row gives the player 3 lawsuit books if they get 3 new lawsuits and have over 3 in total and the lawsuit shift matches 1. This yet again continues the pattern of only giving the books needed, so for example if the player gets 1 lawsuit on day 1 and then 3 on day 2, their lawsuit count would be 4. This means that the player will be given books 2, 3 and 4 since the player was already given book 1 in a previous shift. Now let's take a look at how to deal with the lawsuits when they're assigned, starting with the first option. When the settle text is clicked on in the book, a redstone block is going to be placed to power the connected command block that subtracts the cash amount stated in the book. And though this option is always more expensive than fighting the lawsuit, it makes sure that the case is dealt with instantly. Then when the case is settled, the new lawsuit count is then going to decrease until there's none remaining, where this command block is then going to send an output to take the player back to the pizzeria to start the next day. Fighting the lawsuit has a few more steps, but it starts by using the exact same command blocks. This time, however, instead of only having 3 command chains, there's 1 for each of the 10 lawsuits, and that's because the price to fight the lawsuit changes for each one. Now when the case is fought, a command block is then going to power a randomizer for each case, which works by teleporting these back armor stands to one of the other 2, giving it a 50-50 chance of going either way. If the armor stand goes left, then this command block is going to detect it and power the commands to win the case. This starts by adding a value of 1 to the lawsuit case 1 scoreboard, as well as setting the case number score to 1, letting future command blocks know which case is active. Then this command block is going to set the lawsuit summary to 1, which makes sure that the player is taken back to the lawsuit room after the next day, that way they can see the case results. This needs another setup in the summary sequence to make sure that the player is taken back if needed. Now if the player gets another lawsuit after the previous day, then this system wouldn't be needed, but if the player fixes the pizzeria score, the commands to take the player back to the pizzeria would power instead of the lawsuit ones. So if the player has a summary score of 1 and the redstone block gets set to power the commands to take the player back to the pizzeria, then this AND gate is going to power and remove the repeater from this command chain here, and instead set a redstone block in this other line to take the player back to the lawsuit room. Back over at the win section, this first row of commands determines which books need to be given back to the player, so that way they can see that they won the case. So this command is checking to see which case was active, meaning that the case number score should be set to 1. Next, the case needs to have been 1, and then this command block is checking to see the amount of times the player has been in the lawsuit room by using the lawsuit count scoreboard. Since we don't want the results given to the player during the same day that they're sued, the count scoreboard waits until the player has been in the lawsuit room twice until the result book is given to the player. Then this last command block is making sure that the lawsuit shift is set to 1, that way the result isn't given to the player during another gameplay section. If all of these command blocks power, it will then send an output to power this chain of commands, which is going to give the player the result book, which is a copy of the original one but with the click events removed to prevent fighting an already finished case. The next 2 commands are then going to remove 1 value from the lawsuit case 1 scoreboard, as well as 1 from the amount of lawsuits left since the case has now been dealt with. While looking at a case result, however, the new lawsuit score is going to be set to 0, assuming that the player doesn't get another lawsuit the day after. So what the second build here is going to do is the same thing as the first line, and take the player back to the Tycoon once the player has finished with a lawsuit. Now if the new lawsuit score is set to 0 and there are no lawsuits left to deal with, then both will send an output to power this AND gate while leaving this this middle space open. Now this part is powered when the player clicks on the one text in the result book, which is then going to set a redstone block to finish the AND gate and start to power the repeater line. Now going over what happens if the lawsuit is lost, the other command block chain is going to power, which does the same thing as the first one, except this time it's going to set the player's lawsuit case loss score to 1, which is going to be detected by the command blocks in this third row. Once again, the system is checking to see which case is active and what the result was, as well as seeing if it's the right time to give the player the result book. If it is, then these two command blocks here are going to activate, which gives the player the book, as well as remove the player's lawsuit loss score. Now the book that the player is given is different than the one book, as this time the player is still able to settle the lawsuit or keep on fighting it by once again using the same two text prompts. Settling the lawsuit will power the same commands we went over earlier, however continuing to fight the case needs an additional system to work. All of this is because the first fight system powers a command block that removes the new lawsuit score from the player, which we don't want since the player has a chance to not have any new lawsuits after starting the next shift. So what the pending result book does is set a redstone block to power these top command blocks, which will do the same thing as the original chain but without subtracting the new lawsuit score. This lets us reuse the same commands over and over again in case the player happens to lose the same lawsuit multiple times. The remaining commands do the exact same thing as the platform under it, where if the case is won, the one book is going to be given, and if the case is lost, the pending result book is going to be given, letting the player continue the cycle until the lawsuit is eventually won or settled by the player. In all honesty, the entire lawsuit gameplay has been the most complicated part to make so far in this entire project, and it took over a week just to make sure that everything works in the way that it should. But now that finishes everything for the lawsuit part of the gameplay, so now we can take a look at how to get the final ending. This was very simple to set up, as the way the ending is triggered is when the player spends more cash than they have. So this command block will send an output if the player's cash score goes below 0, which will then change the Helpy's armor stand in the lawsuit room to be in a shocked position, as well as power some more command blocks that end the section. Then after a short delay, the final cutscene is going to play out as the player is taken to these different rooms and is then given the certificate of bankruptcy before then ending the game. With all 6 endings now finished, there is only one final feature left to add before this project is fully completed, and that's to add the intro cutscene that takes place at the very beginning of the game. So before the game starts, the player is going to be able to push a button that is then going to start the intro sequence. And just like with the other endings, I've once again started with the voice lines, that way the visuals can be added on top and play at the right time. Since this section acts as the game's tutorial, there is a lot more voice lines and visuals compared to the other endings. But once the tutorial unit has finished explaining the gameplay, the player is then going to be teleported to a room next to the shopping menu, where the player is then going to be given $100 to start the week with. From there, the player is then going to be taken to the shopping menu where the game officially starts by letting the player buy items for their pizzeria. And now after 5 months of working on this project, the entire build is now completed and ready to be play tested. The total command block count is now 18,500, but every gameplay section has been added and is fully playable in Minecraft. This is one of the biggest projects I've ever worked on, and it was really fun to mess around with different commands and features that I've never used before to help put this build together. But with all of that now being said, it is now time to see if we can survive a week of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator in Minecraft. I hope that you enjoy it, and let's see how we do.
It's a new day. It's your time to shine. It's time to take your career into your own hands. You've saved money your whole life. Great. Now it's time to put all your eggs into one basket and take a huge gamble on your future. A gamble that comes with a 100% chance of success in some cases. What are we talking about? We're talking about becoming a Fazbear Entertainment franchisee. That's right, restaurant ownership and management. Something almost anyone can do with a limited degree of success. Sure, it's a lot of money to invest, but everyone's doing it. And that means it's safe and lucrative. With your initial investment, you'll receive everything you need to get started, including a small room, some tables, and electricity. But don't forget about the money you had left over after buying your franchise package. Use it to decorate, buy a stage, buy attractions and animatronics, and much, much more. Now, let's take a look at a few things that will help you get started as a Fazbear Entertainment franchisee, such as atmosphere. Making sure your establishment has an inviting atmosphere is essential to bringing in new customers. Entertainment. Having a lot of entertainment value in your restaurant will ensure that customers come back. Bonus revenue. Coin-operated games and attractions can generate additional revenue during the day, which means more money in your pocket, ready for reinvestment. Health and safety. There may be times when you purchase something of questionable quality, and we don't blame you. Cutting corners is just good business. But there are steps you can take to ensure you don't get sued for it. And that brings us to liability. Being a thrifty shopper is smart, but be aware that buying things on sale comes with a certain amount of risk. Aside from the daily risk of lawsuits, there's also the risk that something might be hiding inside whatever you just purchased with that steeply discounted price tag. Of course, that would only be a serious danger if there were something outside that's been trying to get in for months now, which we are not confirming to be the case. This concludes the amount of help we are legally obligated to provide. Remember, you are now the face of the newly rebranded Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Wear that smile with pride, and let's make some money. Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for disappearance, death, or dismemberment. Let's see how much cash you had left over after purchasing your franchise package. Great, that should be more than enough. Now let's get started.
Alright, so with the intro cutscene over with, the week has now begun, and now we can start going ahead and looking through all the different shopping catalogs. Starting on day one, we only have $100 to spend, so I don't see us buying too much here. So what we might have to do is go ahead and buy some of those sponsorship offers. That way we're able to get a bit more money out of that, so that way we can start off stronger by having a bit more amount of revenue. That way we're able to customize our pizzeria a lot more. But as we're cycling through all of these items right here, I do have somewhat of an idea in mind of what I want to do with the pizzeria. So to start out with, we're going to go ahead and buy the paper pals. This is something I almost always do when playing Pizzeria Simulator. It's only $5. It has an atmosphere of 1, but it's so cheap it's not really going to affect your wallet in the slightest. All of these animatronics here, I don't see myself getting, honestly. I don't usually get animatronics on day one, or at least earlier on in the week, especially not the Trash in a Gang, since you have to buy a stage as well as those animatronics. So the stages, I'm probably not going to be buying any earlier on in the week. I'll most likely be focusing that on the later days. But for the time being, let's go all the way back to the beginning here and see what we have here. So the balloon barrel is here. It's $30. We still have 95. There's a bonus revenue of 1 and an entertainment of 1. I'm going to go ahead and buy that too, so that way we can put that in our pizzeria. Next here is the discount ball pit for $30, but it has a liability of 1. So I'm going to avoid buying that for the time being. That way later on when we buy the risk heavy attractions, we're then able to have a lot more bonus revenue, with all the statistics being a lot higher than the discount ball pit was. As it only had an entertainment value of 3, we can have a lot better when we unlock the better attractions later on. But as we cycle through, there's one more that I do want to get right now. The sanitation station is too expensive, but I will most likely be buying that as soon as I possibly can. But for the time being, let's go ahead and buy the duck pond. It's cheap, but it's going to give us a few more entertainment points as well as some bonus revenue. And that's all we can really buy for the time being. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is go to our pizzeria for the first time and see what we have going on in here. So the paper pals are already in the top corner of the room. However, let's now go ahead and put down the 2 attractions we just bought, starting with the balloon barrel. There we go. And we'll go ahead and put the duck pond right next to it. We'll just put them both next to each other. So now we have $20 remaining, but our entertainment value is at 3. We have a bonus revenue value of 2, an atmosphere of 1. Risk is at 0, which is really important. I'm probably going to be keeping my eye on that one the most. And safety is currently 0, but later on we will be making sure that we can up our safety and keep our risk as low as we possibly can. But now that we're in the pizzeria, we can now go ahead and take a look at the menu here, starting with the first sponsorship offer I was talking about, which I will be accepting. As for day one, it's really just a filler day. There's not a lot you can do in your pizzeria, so getting as much money as a head start is going to be really helpful, as especially later on in the week we'll be able to get even more revenue and we'll be able to buy even more expensive attractions. So with those $270, we're now going to be scrolling back over to the sanitation station and buying that, so that way we don't have to worry too much about any risk later on, at least for the early game. So we'll go ahead and buy that, and it's now unlocked a new catalog for us. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have going on over here, starting with the foil party set. It's $50, as an atmosphere of 3 and a safety of 2. I'm going to be buying that. We're not really going to be buying a lot of tabletop decorations like this, so I might as well get it, as the next one is going to be much later in the catalogs and it's going to be a lot more expensive. So let's see what we have going on in here. I don't think we'll be able to buy many of these, as they are a lot more expensive than what we took a look at in the earlier catalog. However, there are some things like this, the neon stage lights. It's $90. It has an atmosphere of 2 and an entertainment of 2. That could be tempting, but at the same time I do want to make sure that I'm saving some money for the next day. Novelty traffic light is $80, so it's $10 cheaper, and it has an atmosphere of 5. Atmosphere is really important for the first day, so I'm going to be buying that. Atmosphere is what brings people into the pizzeria, so that way when we get more people in the pizzeria, we're then going to be able to get even more revenue that way. Next are all of the mediocre melodies. We can't buy any of these right now because we don't have a stage, and it's also way too expensive for any of them. And Candy Cadet is last here. Once again, can't buy him, so I think we're just going to leave it at that for the time being. So let's go ahead and recap what we've done for day one. So let me see if we have any attractions just in case. Nope, just the balloon barrel and the duck pond for the time being. We have the sanitation station out in the back, as well as the novelty traffic light. The paper pals are there in the corner, as well as the banners for the sponsorship offer, which honestly add a lot more to the pizzeria. I do like having these banners, that way the walls aren't just a blank canvas with nothing on them. We also have the tabletop decorations, and that is about it to start off with Monday. So we have $40 remaining, but we have an atmosphere of 9, a safety value of 5, entertainment of 3, a bonus revenue of 2, and most importantly, our risk is staying at 0. But I think that's all we can really do for day one. So now let's go ahead and open up the inventory menu once again, and let's go ahead and start our first office shift and go ahead and start ordering all of these tasks. Now, no one is here on day one. There is no one in the vent, so we can do whatever we want, really. So what I'm probably going to do is explain the strategy of how I've played Pizzeria Simulator in the past, especially while learning the different mechanics for this Minecraft recreation, and I want to see if I can apply them into this world, just to see how well the two mechanics are going to work together. Right now, I'm currently just ordering all the supplies in the order that they're assigned in, but later on, there is a specific order that I want to do them in, and that's starting out with the loudest task, those being all the printing tasks, as those are going to be very loud, and we're not going to be able to hear any animatronic footsteps in the surrounding air vents, especially with the fan going on in the background. You can probably hear for yourself, it's very loud. I'm hoping that my voice is still able to be heard over all of this. So what we'll be doing when we're doing any of the printing tasks is we'll be switching the fan off. That way we're able to hear anything in the left or right air vents, as it's going to be very difficult later on hearing any of those sounds, especially with how quiet they are compared to all of these tasks. But then once we're done with them, we're able to turn the fan back on. You can see it's actually going up pretty quickly. So go ahead and turn it back on. We have nothing to worry about. And then the last task row here is pretty quiet. It's the quietest of the 3. So this one we're going to be doing last. So that way, when the fan is turned on, we're able to hear the surrounding vents a lot better, since we don't have any extra noise to worry about. But with that, that's really how I do the tasks. Tomorrow night, I'm going to explain how I usually go against the animatronics themselves. But since there's not much going on for this night, I just want to take things one step at a time, as there's no things to overcomplicate things for the time being. So we'll just finish up with this last task, and then we'll be on our way to the first salvage section. So let's go ahead and log off. And there we go. We have now completed the first office shift. Very nice, very simple, and nothing to worry about just yet. Alright, now here we are in the first salvage sequence up against Molten Freddy. Now, what we're going to be doing for this gameplay is going for the completion ending. I'll go ahead and show off all the other endings at the end of the video, but for the time being, for this gameplay, I want to focus on getting the completion ending. So for that, we're going to have to proceed with the salvage for every single one of them. So let's go ahead and do that. Salvage value is $500. That's going to be a nice bonus if we can get that, and the audio prompt is about to begin. So let's go ahead and pay attention to all of his different movements, as even though there are 2 different stages, I keep getting mixed up between which one is which. So I'm going to try my best and not use the taser too much, as that is going to decrease the value. So document results, let's go ahead and say no. There, that's obviously the first movement right there, and I'm pretty sure that is stage 1. So do we use the taser yet? There is still a chance he can jump scare us, but we also have a bigger chance of him moving on to stage 3 instead of jumping immediately to the jump scare. I'm not too sure. I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'm going to go ahead and use the taser. Let's go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and click on yes. He's moved once again. Nothing we can really do about that. Let's go ahead and play the next one and just wait for this one to end. We have 3 taser uses in total before the value starts to go down. I'm not sure how many I really want to use, but in some cases with the more expensive animatronics, I might use the taser more than 4 times, even though it's going to decrease the value. So 500 is second taser. I'd rather be safe than sorry with this. So let's now go ahead and check on yes. He's moved again. We have 1 more. So for this one, I think I might have to skip it, just so that way if he does move on to stage 3 after this, I still have a taser to use later on. It's a bit nerve-wracking, but I think this is how it should go, and hopefully we get lucky and he doesn't jump scare us right now. Let's see. Okay, we got lucky. Okay, we got lucky there. We got really lucky. So we still have 1 more use, and this is one of the last audio tapes as well. So I might just use the taser one last time, and then we'd be done with it. So that's not bad for a first salvage. $500 to start the week with. It's pretty good. Let's just go ahead and use the taser. Not taking any risks here. Let's go ahead and play the tape so that way we don't have to next time. Let's go ahead and click on yes because he did that. And there we go. We completed the maintenance checklist. So there we go. We got the $500 for salvage revenue on top of everything we're about to get in the summary menu. And there is Molten Freddy. He is now going to be in the vent system along with us. So now we actually need to pay attention to all of those noises in the vents. So let's see how we did on our first day. Once again, I focused on atmosphere. So hopefully that should be good. So new visitors is 24, returning visitors 31, total visitors is 55. Not bad for day one. Food revenue 275. That's pretty good. Bonus revenue is 226, 500. So $1,000 for day two. That's pretty good. We can do a lot with that, especially with the sponsorship offers as well. I might go ahead and accept that one as well, just so we can pretty much double what we have now. So I'll go ahead and do that quickly. Let's go on over to the pizzeria quickly and see what the advertisement is. So Marty's Plunge is for $500. So it basically doubles what you get from the salvage revenue. I'm going to go ahead and accept it anyway. We need to be really careful with the advertisement ads in the office section, but I think we should be okay if we just don't look at the monitor like you saw what I was doing in the previous shift there. But let's now go back to the shop and see what we can do with $1.5 grand to spend. So let's go over to the second catalog here since we weren't able to buy much from that earlier, and let's see what we can do today. So we do have some of these arcade machines. I think I might focus on some of these attractions today actually. So let's go ahead and buy Fruity Maze. Let's go ahead and buy the Midnight Motorist as well. And what is next? Gumball Swivel Hands has a bonus revenue of 3 and an entertainment of 1. That's pretty good. Let's go ahead and buy that still. We've still got $1,000 left to spend, so I don't think spending that little amount of money is really going to hurt us in the long run. Let's see what else we have here. Stages. I'm once again going to skip over stages for the time being. You can see it's $200, but I also want to buy a set of an entire set of animatronics at once. That way we can get the most amount out of the amount we spend. So let's just keep on going. We bought that, of course, and we still can't buy any of those. So I think once again I'm just going to continue decorating the pizzeria. That way tomorrow we can finally start using the stage animatronics. So we'll just buy the neon stage lights just to get ready for it. There we go. Let's go ahead and buy that. And then anything else in this first row, we still don't have access to the third catalog, so I don't know how much more we need to spend. We still have $1,000 deluxe speaker set. Let's just go ahead and buy this. Why not? It's going to look nice next to the stage, and I don't see myself using anything else. So yeah, let's just go back to the pizzeria. Let's go ahead and put down our 2 new attractions in this side right here. So let's go ahead and put down the Fruity Maze Arcade right there. And let's put the Midnight Motorist right next to it. And now that increases our statistics. So we have an atmosphere level of 19, an entertainment of 13, a bonus revenue of 7, a safety of 5, and once again, keeping that risk at 0. So if you see what we have going on here, we now have the 2 speakers right here, as well as the stage lights. Honestly, I feel like we're going to need a bit more space now. So with the remaining revenue we have, we could upgrade our pizzeria floor plan. It's only 250. Let's go ahead and do it. Why not? So now we have the upgraded pizzeria and we have more slots for more attractions. So now let's go ahead and replace them all again. And we'll go ahead and finish up this pizzeria and then we'll be done for day 2. So I've gone ahead and put down everything we have. And now we've fully moved into our new pizzeria. We have $562 remaining. I'm not going to spend any of that as now we actually have the space for the deluxe concert stage, which is what I'm going to be focusing on buying next. So right here, we have the space for the big stage where we're then able to put down 4 different animatronics, which is then going to skyrocket our statistics and let us earn even more revenue. But with that, we are done for day 2. So let's now go ahead and go on over to the menu and let's go ahead and throw the finished item and get started on the offer shift. Now, Molten Freddy is here with us, so this is where I'm probably going to have to concentrate a bit more. Let's check the motion detector, see where he's starting at. And I am going to have to be a bit quiet so that way I can hear any noises in the vents. So it's at the top right side. Let's go ahead and use the audio lure and put it in that corner there. That's usually what I do anyway, is I usually start out by doing that and then just put the audio lure in the corner that they're at and keep my attention on that side of the vent while never really looking at the computer monitor. I want to try my best to not look at the monitor as much as possible. That way we don't run the risk of having any ads play and then we're getting stuck whenever there's an animatronic in the vent that's about to get us. So just go ahead and keep on doing these. I might turn off the fan eventually, but right now I'm just going to play it safe. Hopefully Molten Freddy took the audio lure bait and is still over at that side and hasn't moved on over, because there is a chance that he doesn't take the audio lure itself. But we'll just keep on doing this. Maybe check the audio lure, well, not the audio lure, but the motion detector one more time just so we're safe. I'll finish this task and then we'll do that. Not hearing any noises though. I might turn the fan off. No one? I don't hear. All right, so let's go ahead and check the motion detector. Okay, he's right. He's still right there. Okay, that's good. That's good for us. Let's keep him in that corner. Let's go ahead and go back and turn on the fan. And let's go ahead and keep on doing these tasks. Actually, of course, we have the printing task right now. I need to turn the fan on, though, because the temperature is reaching its limit. So let's just take a look at that vent as we're doing it. And hopefully we're fine. It's back down at 60. Okay, I think we're good there. I'm not sure if he was in the vent or not. Again, it's really difficult to hear with the fan going on. This is going to be really intense with multiple animatronics active at once. I'm not sure how this is going to work. Threw the wrong item there. Good thing. That won't worry about anything. Just keep this going. I'll keep my attention on this vent. I'm not going to check anything else. I think we're pretty much done for the night. Night 1 is still pretty simple. There's only one animatronic. But next night is going to be rather interesting, as this is when we're going to have 2 animatronics, and we have the risk of both of them being in both vents at the same time, which I'm not looking forward to if that happens, to be honest. So let's get this one last task done. Let's go ahead and log off, and there we go. We've now completed the second shift, and now we're moving on to the second salvage section. So this time we are dealing with Scrap Trap, and once again we are going to be proceeding with the salvage. He is worth $1,000 in salvage revenue. They're going to be a lot more important as we go along, so I'm going to try my best to make sure that we're able to salvage every single one. Like I mentioned last time, if we do have to overuse the taser, that's okay, but I'm going to try my best to not use it if possible, but I'd rather still get some money than none at all. So document results. No, he didn't move. I think he may have moved. I'm not too sure. My screen is really dark, and I'm not sure if his head moved slightly. It might have. I'll use the taser just in case, like we did last time with Molten Freddy. I don't want to run the risk. Rather be safe than sorry here. Wait for this to end. Document results. Let's use the taser quickly. Yeah, he did move his head. All right. Good thing I caught that. And let's go ahead and say yes to that. Okay, yeah, he really moved that. That's stage 3, so we definitely need to shock him after this one. Otherwise, it's a 50-50 chance of getting jump scared with this one. We could run the risk of not using the taser and saving it for later, but I know my luck. I'd rather just shock him and be safe. So wait for this to be over. Document results. Let's use the taser. Get back in your place. Let's go ahead and play the tape again, and let's go ahead and say yes. And he moves back to stage 3 immediately after. That's not good for me. That is really not good. So we have one more use. I say we use it after this one. That was our second taser use, I'm pretty sure. Alright. So let's just use it. And now... Okay, he didn't move. I don't think he moved, at least. Maybe he's on stage 2, actually. But we have a higher chance of getting this salvage than if he was at stage 3, at least. So instead of having a 50-50 chance, we now have a 33% chance. I'm pretty sure if I know my math. Document results. Please, Scrap Trap, be nice. There we go. Okay, thank God. These salvage sections have always been really nerve-wracking. Even when you make this game, there's still that luck factor that you don't know for certain what's going to happen. So there we go. We got Scrap Trap now, so that's $1,000 more for salvage revenue. And let's see how we did for our second day at work. So let's see. So 64 new visitors. There we go. Stack of people. Returning visitors is 51. Total visitors is 115. 15 turned away. Oops. Too many people trying to get into a pizzeria. $575. $1,000 of salvage revenue. That's $2,000 in total. That's pretty good. We can do a lot with that. So pretty sure that should be enough for the concert stage like I was talking about. Let's go ahead and see. So we can't afford that just yet, actually. We still don't have the third catalog. Is there anything cheap we can get quickly? Anything that won't cost a lot? I mean, I know we have $2,500 to spend, plus the sponsorship offer if we decide to accept that. I'm not going to buy any of these stages. There's no point now. The discount cooling unit is $25. It's got safety of 2 and an atmosphere of 1. I might as well. It's cheap. And okay, that was all we needed. Great. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the third catalog here. So here we have the Star Curtain stage, which we can't buy just yet since we don't have the third pizzeria unlocked. But we can go ahead and buy the deluxe concert stage for $800, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing. So there we go. We've bought our first stage. And honestly, we don't need to buy any more stages. This is it. You save up for the big thing, and that's all you need for the rest of the week. So let's continue on through here. So here are the attractions that have some liability risk. So entertainment of 6, but a liability of 3. That is an instant lawsuit right there. So I don't want that. Liability of 4, once again, lawsuit. Carnival Hoops doesn't have any liability as an entertainment of 5 and a bonus revenue of 4. I'll go ahead and buy that. We have more space for more attractions, and it unlocked the 4th catalog. Cool, that's really good, so we can go ahead and check that out later on. We have the Riding Rockets here, which has a liability of 1. Once again, I'm going to be skipping over that for the time being. Honestly, with the 1200 we have left, I think it might be best to just buy some animatronics for our stage now that we have it. All of this is going to be way too expensive, and the Rockstars are way too expensive. They're 2,000 a piece with not Funtime Foxy, with Rockstar Foxy being 2,500. So let's just go ahead and buy the Mediocre Melodies. We might actually be able to buy all 4 of them, and with that, that should hopefully boost our pizzeria statistics by a lot. So that way, when it comes Thursday, we're going to have a lot more money to spend, and we should be able to buy even more animatronics, and the cycle continues there. So Happy Frog is 200. Let's go ahead and buy that. Let's go ahead and see what's next. Mr. Hippo for 190. Not sure why he's $10 cheaper, but I'm not going to question it. Let's go ahead and buy him as well. Ned Bear here has an entertainment of 5, but he does have a liability of 1. For the time being, I'm going to go ahead and buy him. It is a liability of 1, so we don't need to worry about a lawsuit just yet. However, if we get any more attractions or animatronics that have a risk of 1, then we are going to get a lawsuit after that. With that, I think that should be it, though. We have $350 around that. But let's just go ahead and put our animatronics up on stage now. So in order, let's just go in the order that we bought them. So Happy Frog up first. There we go. We have our first animatronics. Let's go ahead and put Mr. Hippo next to her. Then we'll put the next animatronic next to Mr. Hippo, which is Ned Bear. Again, risking our liability a little bit here, but I think it should be okay, especially with all the safety equipment we have in the pizzeria. So there we go. We now have an entertainment of 30, an atmosphere of 20, a bonus revenue of 7, a safety of 7, and a risk of 1. But that should hopefully be okay for the time being, as long as we don't go overboard with any other attractions. But speaking of which, I'm pretty sure we did buy another attraction. Yep, we bought the Carnival Hoops. So let's go ahead and place that down here, which brings our entertainment up to 35, and our bonus revenue up to 11. That's very good, and it does that all without increasing our risk. So day 3, I think this is all I'm going to do. I just wanted to focus on buying a stage finally for day 3, so that way tomorrow we're able to get even more revenue through these animatronics, which we're then going to be able to probably upgrade our pizzeria and buy even more attractions and animatronics to just increase the cycle. The last thing I'm going to do actually before we get started on the next offer shift is I'm going to go ahead and accept this new sponsorship offer for $1,000. Now I'm not going to spend any of it. I'm going to be saving it for the later nights, but it's also giving us $1,000 extra than what we had since we were only at $340 left. That's really going to help us out for tomorrow, but with that, that's all I really wanted to do. So now let's go ahead and start our next office shift, where now we have 2 animatronics to deal with here. So I'm not too sure how this is going to work out. So quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put an audio law in a random corner. Not sure if there's an animatronic there or not, but I'm just going to put it there, and then from there, we're just going to start doing all of our tasks and start listening to all of the noises. So might be a bit quieter during the remaining gameplays here. Hopefully I'm still able to talk a little bit, but also I really want to hear these vent noises. Alright, that's fine for the time being. I'm going to turn my fan on soon. Ooh, okay. I think I heard a vent noise this side. Yes? Okay, I think we may have got it. I think we may have got it. There was someone on that side. I don't hear anyone else. Okay, we're good. Just finish these tasks. Of course, the animatronics are going the opposite way of where the audio law was. We're good. Alright. And here are the louder tasks. So this is great. I'm going to have to start doing the strategy I was talking about on night 1 now. Or I did the louder ones first. Alright. Keep going. I'm being really quiet now. I apologize for this. Hopefully it's not too boring to watch. But I'm sure if you've played FNAF 6 for yourself, you would fully understand the situation that I'm finding myself in right now. And I have to turn the fan back on because the temperature is going up. Alright, I think we're good there. Let's unclog some toilets. And hopefully no one visits us while we're doing so. Alright. Final 2 tasks. We're almost back at 60 temperature, which is good. Last task. Let's get this done with. I think we're good. It was just that one encounter. Yep, we're good to go. Log off. There we go. Okay, that first encounter really worried me there, but we did manage to hold that off. I wonder who that was and if the other animatronic was affected by the audio law in the end there. But here we are in the third salvage against Scrap Baby, where once again, we are going to be proceeding with the salvage, and we're going to try our best to get this $2,000 here. That's going to be really nice if we manage to get that. Now, Scrap Baby is, for some reason, the one I've usually had the most trouble with. So if I have to use the taser more times than 3 and the salvage revenue starts to go down, it'd still be okay, because once again, it's still a little bit less than what you would get. But also, some is better than none. That was definitely a movement there. I don't remember Scrap Baby's movements, if that's stage 1 or stage 2. I'm just going to once again use the taser on the first movement like I've always done. That seems to have worked for me so far. Don't want to jinx myself now that I've said that, though. Just go with it for the time being. Document results. Nope. I'm going to zap you. Good. Alright. Yes. Yes, she moved again. Okay, that's stage 3. I want to say that's a different movement than what she was at originally. So, definitely going to use the taser this time. Let's just get that ready. This is only audio prompt 2. There's 5. Document results. Nope. I'm going to zap you first. Alright. Yes. And she moved again. Great. I still don't know if this is stage 1 or 2. I could be completely wasting a taser use here. I'm gonna assume that this is the stage 3 one and go with my original thought. I've got one more taser use. Got one more taser use. I'm going to use it here. And I'm going to hope that the next time she moves right now, if at all. Okay, it's only stage 1. Okay, so it was stage 3. So good thing I did use the taser then. So I have a higher chance of getting the full value out of this, which I'm going to try and do now. Because this is only stage 2 with a higher chance of winning. I really hope so. That's three tasers. Document results. Scrap Baby, please. Oh, god damn it. Okay, that sucks. That's really annoying. That's $2,000 down the drain. I'll try to see what I can do without that. That's really annoying. First salvage lost. Oh well, alright. Well, it is what it is, I suppose. Total visitors is 205. That should hopefully make up for it. It's $2,000 though. Hopefully we can get it with Lefty. Lefty's 5,000. That's going to be a lot more annoying if I lose Lefty. Total revenue is 1,800. God, we could have almost doubled that if we had... Oh well, alright, well we'll have to go without that. It's Thursday now, let's just go ahead and take that sponsorship offer so that way I can make up for it. How much is it? It's $2,500. You know what? I'll take it. So now we're at $5,000 now, and we're able to do a lot more with that. So let's see what we can do for our pizzeria today. So let's go ahead and check out the 4th catalog, as I didn't do that when I unlocked it. So here we have the balloon cart. This stuff is very expensive. This is unavailable because we don't have the max pizzeria. Some of this is going to be way too expensive. This is what I was talking about earlier as well with the tabletop decorations. This is the last one there is, and it's the best out of the lot. We have Orville Elephant here, who is $4,100. I could... If I were to buy... Hang on, I've got a thought here. So we've got Orville Elephant, who is the last member of the Mediocre Melodies that we don't have. He's $4,100, so I can afford him. But can I afford buying this as well and upgrading the pizzeria? I don't think I can. I think I might have to wait until... because I don't have any more sponsorship offers. This costs $1,000 itself. We missed out on that opportunity because my idea is if we get to upgrade our pizzeria and we get the second stage, if we put Orville Elephant there, we're going to have all the Mediocre Melodies together and we'll be able to get that achievement and get a bonus revenue of I think $10,000 is what it is set at. So that was my idea. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to do that, however, but what I'll do quickly anyway is I'll still go ahead and upgrade the pizzeria for $1,000. So there we go. We have the max floor plan upgraded, and let's go ahead and move everything from that pizzeria over to this one. With everything now here, this place is a lot emptier since we have some smaller attractions in place. So let's go back to the shop once more time and see if there are any attractions or anything that'll fit in the pizzeria. Let's go ahead and see what that second stage costs first. It's $500, so we might be able to do it actually. If I buy this, we might be able to buy Wait, we can. Wait. We might be able to do this. We might just make the minimum amount of what we need for this. Can I go over and buy Orville now? Please tell me I can. We can buy Orville. Okay, so now... This is getting me excited. Because we can now go back to our pizzeria. We have $61. $61 short from not being able to do this. But now if I go ahead and go over to our second stage and put down Orville Elephant, we get the Mediocre Melodies achievement and we get $10,000 extra. That's great, because now we have $10,000 more to spend for whatever we'd like. Now what I'm thinking, because we got the first achievement for the Mediocre Melodies, that gave us $10,000. Now, I'm wondering, can I afford all the Rockstar animatronics and do the same thing with them? Because if so, our bonus revenue is going to go further than it ever has before. And I really like to see if I could try that in this map. That was something I always tried to do in Pizzeria Simulator as well, is I would almost always rely on these achievements. That way I could get more revenue. So they're $2 grand each, plus Foxy. So, yep, I can afford them. I'm gonna do it. They do have a slight risk for each one. They do each have a liability risk of 1. That could be a problem. So that leaves us with 1,500. Is there anything I can do for safety in that case? Well, let's see how much before we buy anything. I want to see what the risk score is going to be set at. I don't want to waste money for the sake of it, but let's go ahead and remove these animatronics, which we just put up on stage. Sorry guys, but you guys are getting replacements. Let's now go ahead and place up the Rockstar animatronics. So starting with Rockstar Freddy, then up next, we're going to go ahead and put down Rockstar Bonnie. Then we'll do Rockstar Chica. We're just going to do them in order, nothing special about it. Rockstar Chica, and then finally we have Rockstar Foxy here. So that's all 4 of them. That gives us a risk of 3, which is definitely worth a lawsuit there. So I don't really want that. But also entertainment is at 47, atmosphere is 21, revenue is 12, safety is 7. Those are some pretty good statistics, but I do not like the fact that I have to deal with a lawsuit if we go along with that. So let me see if there's any cheap form of safety equipment that I can buy quickly, so that way I don't have to deal with those lawsuits, because at the price I am at right now with how much cash I have, I don't think I'll be able to afford many of those lawsuits. Medical stations is 600. You know, we're buying it. There we go. So that should hopefully lower our risk down to 0. There we go. So that's great. We have all 4 Rockstar animatronics. Because of the medical station, it reduced all the risk value, and now we're good to go. So with that, there's only 1 Rockstar animatronic remaining before we can get that achievement, and that's Lefty. Now Lefty I don't want to buy just yet. They are in the final catalog at the bottom here. They are a cheap price. They're $5. But at the same time, we are going to salvage them after this shift. So I don't really see the point of buying Lefty when we're going to be able to salvage them and get the same position anyway. Because if we buy Lefty now, we won't be able to salvage them, meaning we're losing an opportunity of potentially getting $5,000. So for the time being, we're going to skip over Lefty, but then once we salvage them, we'll then go ahead and buy them and get that final achievement. But for now, with the $500 we have left, let's just go ahead and see what last decoration we can get for our pizzeria. Hopefully that doesn't have much liability. Maybe one of these guys, the Lemonade Clown or the Fruit Punch Clown. Atmosphere of 3, entertainment of 2, bonus revenue of 1 for 490, my bad. Let's just go ahead and buy it. So that puts us down at 71. That's going to be all we do for today then. We already took the sponsorship offer, I believe so. Yep, we did. That's really what saved us from Scrap Baby there. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have been able to get all of these Rockstar animatronics up on stage. But now let's go ahead and put down the Fruit Punch Clown, and that brings our entertainment up to 49, our atmosphere to 24, revenue to 13, and safety to 12. And I think that is all we are going to be able to do for today. So we've got our max pizzeria, we have the maximum amount of presets, we have 4 of the Rockstar animatronics already up on stage, ready for us to put Lefty up on the second stage, and then we'll be able to get another cash bonus, and we'll be able to completely fill out the pizzeria with even better attractions. But with that, let's now go ahead and start the office shift. Now this is where I'm going to be absolutely silent, because I don't want to lose track of where the animatronics are at. So, fan off. Loud tasks. Just quick movements. Don't look at the monitor. Good. These dawn's done. Not hearing any movement. That's good. Let's keep this going. Temperature is up, though. Okay. The max temperature is 120. So I don't want to risk that. Let's do these louder tasks first. Then we can turn the fan off. Where are we at now? Let's just do this quietly. Very, very quiet here. I'm sorry if I'm sorry this is a bit boring. All right, we're good to go. Get these tasks done. Temperature is 87. I may turn the fan back on soon. Get this last task up here done. And then we'll turn the fan on for the remaining ones. I'll turn it on now, actually. Okay. Good to go. Unclog toilets. Last ones. We can do this. No one's appeared just yet. I have been making as little noise as possible, so maybe that's helping out a lot. And maybe the audio lore took a lot of them out as well, which works very well in my favor. Come on, last task. And log off. Ooh, okay, that was a lot easier. That was a lot easier. We didn't get any encounters, but also that strategy of doing the louder tasks first with the fan off really, really does help. But here we are with the final salvage of the week with Lefty, who once again, we are going to proceed with the salvage. That way we can get that 5 grand bonus salvage value. If we get this, it's going to be a massive help. So I'm going to be very careful with this, and if I have to use more than 3 controlled shocks, I will do so, because $4,995 or $950 is better than none. Document results. No movement. That's a movement. Now with Lefty, I'm not too sure what his movements are either. I forget if it's looking up and then looking to the side, or if it's side then looking towards me like he is now. I'll shock it anyway. I don't want to die on the first taser. That would be terrible. Document results? No. Alright. Continue that. Yes. Okay, that's another movement. See, I don't know which one that is. I'm pretty sure this is the second movement. Or the third one. This is the one before he's about to jump scare us. So this one I do tase. Just wait for this to end. Any second now. I'm not taking the chance, Lefty. I'm not taking the chance. Alright, so that's the second taser. Yes, he moved. He moved again. Okay, he can't do that again. Unless we get extremely lucky. We've got one more tase use. We can do it one more time. Again, I say this as if I can't just lose $50 every bonus tase I do. But also, $5,000 is a lot better. Let's do the final shock. Alright. Alright, there we go. Oh, he's on his final stage again. Alright. Did we do the 50-50? This is it. It's either 50-50 or we lose it all here. Oh, I don't know what to do. I genuinely don't know what to do. $5,000 or do we do it all or nothing? All or nothing. All or nothing. Oh, god damn it again. I should have just tased. I should have just tased. I was talking about it the whole time and I should have just gone with the tase, but oh well. I'm not sure what this item is in my inventory yet. I should probably fix that. Oh well, sorry about that. I'll go fix that on later on. Really sucks that we didn't get Lefty or Scrap Baby, but how much value is that going to set us at? 2,300. We're gonna have to take the sponsorship offer again. I mean, to be fair, we haven't got any ads on the office monitor, so that's been fine so far, so I'm just gonna go ahead and take that again. So pizzeria, it's $5,000. I'll go ahead and take it. So that puts us at $7,000. But now we can buy Lefty. So you know what? We didn't get the Lefty salvage, but we can still buy Lefty and get ourselves a big bonus anyway of 20,000, I believe it was. So that's going to put us up quite a bit. Hopefully we're going to be able to buy some of the higher end attractions with that. So let's see. So security puppet, Lefty. So let's buy Lefty now. All we need to do is put Lefty up on stage and then be done with it, because Lefty has a liability risk of 9, not staying up on stage for very long. So let's go ahead and remove Where is the Orville Elephant? And then let's go ahead and put down Lefty, and that should give us our second achievement, Rockstars Assemble, where we get 20 grand from that. So we're now at $27,419, and now Lefty can go away now. That liability risk is not sitting right with me. Let's go ahead and put Orville back. He's a lot nicer than Lefty. He doesn't give any liability risk, even though he doesn't give as much entertainment. I'm fine with that. So with that, $27,000 to spend. It is Friday. It's pretty much the last day of the week because all of the money we've spent is only really valid up to this point. Tomorrow being the final day, the money we spent isn't going to be worth it anymore. So let's just go ahead and see whatever we can buy. So we've got 27,000. Do we buy an expensive animatronic? Or do we buy an attraction? Prize King is $7,000. Security Puppet is $12,000. I don't really need safety that much. Music Man's $19,000. That's pretty good. L-Chip is 27,000. No, he's not 27,000. I was looking at the wrong way. He's 32,000. So I can't buy L-Chip and I can't buy Funtime Chica, which means I can't buy the Jar of Pickles. Unfortunately, we'll be fine without it though. So I might buy Music Man. It's a stage animatronic that brings a lot of statistics, but also we need to fill out some of our spaces in our pizzeria. So let me go buy Music Man quickly and see how much we have remaining to spend on some props, so that way we can finally fill out our max size pizzeria. All right, there we go. Music Man has now been acquired. We have $8,400 remaining. That's quite a lot, actually. We can probably get quite a lot with that. So let's go on through again. Liability of 3, no thank you. Liability of 4, definitely not. Reliability of 1, I mean, Music Man does have a liability of 1 as well, which I did completely ignore. You probably noticed that. Music Man does have a liability of 1, but we don't have any liability right now, so we'll be fine with him. This doesn't have any liability at all. I'm just going to go ahead and buy this. We have both Fruit Punch and Lemonade Clowns. That's fine. We can put them in a pair. Neon Jukebox has a bonus revenue of 5 and entertainment of 5 for 1,000. Let's go ahead and buy that. Why not? Let's see what else there is. We've got the medical stations, the security doors. Again, we don't really need security. There are some things I still want to fill up, but I don't want to run the risk of having any lawsuits. The lawsuits are really going to not end well if I don't have the right amount of cash needed for how many I'm going to get. At the end here is Candy Cadet. Candy Cadet's 310. Yeah, we'll go buy Candy Cadet as well. And let's go ahead and go back to our pizzeria and place them all down. So let's start over here. Maybe we should do some rearranging as well, actually. Let's put some of the bigger attractions at the back here. Let me start out by removing everything, and then I'll come back once I put everything in its new place. So that's now all 8 attractions placed down. We actually had exactly enough to put everything in its place. So now you can see we have Candy Cadet over there, and we also put the 2 clowns at the very back there. So that way they don't block out any of the other attractions, but we still have $2,700 to spend. I don't think I'm done with that just yet, so let's go ahead and return back to the shop, and one more time let's go through. So Balloon Cart has an entertainment of 6 and a bonus revenue of 4, which is pretty good. Honestly, I think we should just focus on decoration again. I think decoration is going to be nice. So Disco Pizza Light for $3,900 has an atmosphere of 4 and an entertainment of 4. How much was the confetti tile floor? That has an atmosphere of 9 and an entertainment of 2 for $5,000. Honestly, you know what? We're going to get it. There we go. So now we have the proper checker floor pattern, which should update right now. And there we go. Our entertainment is now at 57. Our atmosphere is at 36. Our revenue is at 19. And our safety is at 14. Once again, keeping that risk as low as possible. And we still have $1,719 remaining. But with that, I think that is everything we can do for this pizzeria for today. We've accepted every sponsor we can now, so really everything we earn tomorrow is all we're going to be able to spend, and that'll be it for the week. So with that, I think that's everything to do for the pizzeria, and it's now time to move on to the second final shift where we're going to go back to the office. I'm gonna put my cursor ready so that way I can go straight to the audio lore. Put that in the corner. Go back. Fan off. And get straight onto it. Alright. We're almost done. When I was quiet, like, I'm thinking about this, and I'm relating it to the FNAF 4 map. Okay. I'm relating it to the FNAF 4 map where I was also quiet during that gameplay. This is completely different. This is completely different compared to FNAF 4. At least there was no other noise. No, yep. Right side. think we got that. Did I? I'm questioning myself now. I can't tell what's the task, what's the footsteps. Last row. Fan on for this. Okay. Where? Behind. Right. Okay. Last ones. This isn't even the final night. Come on. Come on. Come on. We got this. And throw it. Okay. God, it gets so intense later on. I wasn't expecting this to get that intense. Wow, okay. And we get straight back to the summary because we've already salvaged all 4 animatronics. Alright, let's see how well this goes. 186 new visitors, 1,600 in food revenue. That's some bonus revenue. Total revenue, 2,805. Honestly, that's fine. We don't even need that anymore since this is the final day of the week. So here we go. It is Saturday, last day. So let's just go ahead and spend it all. I mean, we really have nothing else to do this. So price 3,500 for the balloon cart. This would be the last thing we get though. I'm not sure if that's what I want. This is 3,900. Balloon cart or disco pizza light? Honestly, I'm happy with the attractions we have. I'm going to go ahead and buy the disco pizza light, which leaves us with $624 left. I honestly don't even know what we can do. I could afford that, I suppose. Let's see what our liability's at. Again, this doesn't matter since we're not going to get any lawsuits. Our risk is at 0. We're pretty good since we have those medical stations over there. And it's because I didn't put Music Man up. I just remembered I didn't even put Music Man up. That was a complete waste. Let me go do that quickly. So, who do we want to get rid of? I was going to go for Orville. Honestly, Freddy, I'm sorry, you have to go, Freddy. Let's go ahead and get rid of you. And let's go ahead and put Music Man in your place. So there we go. I completely forgot that we even bought Music Man. So that brings our entertainment up to 70, our atmosphere to 40, our revenue to 19, our safety to 14, and our risk to 1. So yeah, I can't go ahead and buy any more of those attractions because it is going to increase our risk even further, and then we would potentially get a lawsuit. I don't think we should, but honestly, I'm not going to risk it anyway. So this is all we can really do for our pizzeria. We've gone ahead and put everything in place. We have a whole set of animatronics up on stage. Let's go over everything one last time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 attractions we've bought in total, and that's all 8 slots we have filled up. So yeah, that's every attraction that we could put in its place, and we also have a handful of animatronics to go along with it. So I like the ones that we have up on stage, but let's go through all the ones we bought. So Happy Frog, Mr. Hippo, Ned Bear, Pig Patch, Rockstar Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Orville Elephant, Lefty, and Music Man. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way this run went. Now, is it the best we could have done? Probably not, as we did end up losing 2 of the salvages in total, which had the highest amount of revenue. So we could have definitely got a much higher revenue boost if we managed to salvage those 2 animatronics. But for this run, I think we did very well, and we're actually on our way to getting the completion ending. It is now Saturday, the final day of the week, and we've salvaged all 4 of the animatronics. We may have not completed the salvages, but we did salvage every one of them. So now when we beat this final offer shift, we'll be on our way to get the main ending of the game. So now there's only really one final thing left to do and get that started with. So one last time, let's go ahead and open up the minecart and finish the shift, and let's go immediately to that item, and let's go ahead and start. So put the audio low over there, fan off. Let's get started. Good. Moving where? This side. Okay, got it. Fan off. I hate doing this. Okay. I have to turn the fan on for a little bit. Temperature's way too high. Don't want to pat myself on the back or anything, but I did a really good job making this very tense. This is definitely the most tense out of the 7 games I've made so far. 1 through Sister Location Custom Night. That's 6. 7th. Well, hang on. Yeah, where? Side. Okay. It's really difficult to hear. I apologize for the silence. Last row. Alright. Next. Alright. Is that here moving? No. Last task. Come on. I'm ready for it. Go. Log off. Done. Alright, there we go. That is it. I'm going to be quiet now for the completion ending, but I'm really glad we managed to do that.
You played right into our hands. Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? No. This was a gift for us. You gathered them all together in one place, just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place, just for us. A gift. Now we can do what we were created to do and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch, listen, and be full.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
Congratulations on completing your work week. We apologize if your situation wasn't presented to you in a completely honest fashion when you first started, but it was important that your intentions and actions be genuine. Here at Fazbear Entertainment, we value fun, family, and food. But more importantly, we value our commitment to atoning for past mistakes and tying up loose ends. Thank you for your participation. There is no need for you to return to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity. Please accept this certificate of completion. Goodbye for now, and thank you for taking this journey with us.
And there we have it. That was FNAF 6 days 1 through 6 to get the completion ending. And even though it was the longest time it's taken for me to work on a single video, I couldn't be happier with the ending result, and I really do hope that you enjoyed the gameplay. Now, of course, that's not all there is to this game, as there are still 5 other endings to check out, as well as the different jump scares, as we didn't get every single one of them throughout the week. So to end off this video, let's go ahead and show off each one of the jump scares and then all of the endings.
Easier than I thought it would be.
Did I catch you off guard?
I always come back.
You should have known I'd find you.
It's only now that I understand the depth of the depravity of this creature, this monster that I unwillingly helped to create. As if what he had already done wasn't enough. He found a new way to desecrate, to humiliate, to destroy. As if the suffering wasn't enough, the loss of innocence, the loss of everything to so many people. Small souls trapped in prisons of my making, now set to new purpose, and used in ways I never thought imaginable. He lured them all back to a familiar place, back with familiar tricks. He brought them all together. Are they still aware? I hope not. It keeps me awake at night. I could make myself sleep, but not yet. Not until I undo what he has done and heal this wound. A wound first inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this. He set some kind of trap. I don't know what it was, but he led them there again. He overpowered them again, and he robbed them of the only thing that they had again. I I don't know how those tiny breaths of life came to inhabit those machines, but they will never find rest now, not like this. I have to call them all back, all of them, together in one place.
Congratulations! You went somewhere you weren't supposed to go, saw something you weren't supposed to see, and prevented a tidy resolution to a messy problem. Needless to say, you're fired. But before you go, take this certificate of insanity. We're giving it to you to ensure that no one believes you and to ensure that we can promptly replace you without incident. There is a truck waiting for you outside. Take care. Congratulations! You've completed a full week on the job, and you've done it in such a lackluster way that no one is proud or disappointed. It's a fine line to walk, but you did it, completing your job with such an efficient level of laziness that we're surprised you're able to dress yourself in the morning. While such a minimalist work ethic is rare, it doesn't mean that we want you back. In fact, it means you should look for employment elsewhere. But before you go, take this certificate of mediocrity. You should be proud. You stood on 2 feet and convinced someone that you could do something when in fact you couldn't. Now get out. Don't forget Saturday. You want them all to be in one place.
Congratulations on completing the week. Unfortunately, you did not meet your special obligations under paragraph 4. Your employment is terminated. We'll mail you your things. End tape.
Congratulations! By some miracle, you've completed a full week on the job. Here at Fazbear Entertainment, we encourage a healthy spirit of entrepreneurship, which sometimes means taking risks. But you took it a step further. You were reckless and borderline criminally negligent in almost every decision that you made. So much so that you've been deemed a liability hazard, even for us. We'll mail you your final paycheck, minus the costs of wiping the security footage clean and erasing all trace of your employment from our files. But don't feel like you're leaving empty-handed. Take this blacklist certificate. You'll be lucky to ever find employment in this town again. Now take care. You gave it your best shot. You went all in. You put all your eggs into one basket and did the unthinkable. you ran out of cash. While we encourage entrepreneurs to follow their dreams, we also recognize a lost cause when we see one. There are no do-overs, and we trust that you know your way out. But before you go, take this certificate of bankruptcy. Now do everyone a favor and get lost.
But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is now going to wrap it up for today's video. I really do hope that you enjoyed, as it was a lot of fun putting this build together. If you're interested in future projects of mine, then be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. That way you know next time I upload, and you can also help the channel to continue to grow. But with that now being said, thank you everyone so much for watching, and I will of course see you in my next video.